It's 6:04 p.m. and I'm calling on item 1A. Is there any public comment for our closed session items only? We have no one here in person for comment on our closed session items. Did we receive any emails?
No.
All right, great. Next is roll call.
Trustee Dickinson,
Present.
Euler,
I
it's that lag from Europe.
Rodriguez,
gotta find the mute button again.
Here,
trustee Donnelly,
Present.
trustee Edmondson. Present. Trustee Jackson Miller.
Present. Thank you. All right, now we're going to convene to closed session. So we'll see all of our followers later.
Should we close the door?
Yes, please. You want me to get it? Actually, I'm super craft. 6:42 p.m. Right. Excellent. Our first item on the agenda, item 3A, is the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a student from Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary here, and I see Mr. Broadhurst. Would you like to come introduce your student? Thank you.
Okay, board of trustees and district office staff, it gives me great pleasure to present one of our fifth graders, Alessandra Ballard, and she's a great representative of Santa Cruz Gardens school students. And the other thing that's significant about Alessandra is she's only been with us 1 year and is already being noticed as a standout student. And so, Alessandra, you know what to do. You can put your paper down there if you like.
Want us to tilt that down?
Uh,
There we go. There we go.
Good evening. Please stand. Place your hand on your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I will read the SoCal Union Elementary School District Mission Statement. Staff, students, parents, and the community help ensure that each child develops the skills and character necessary for lifelong achievement and responsible citizenship in a diverse world.
Hi.
Great job. Alessandra, we have a certificate of recognition for you. Is it okay if I read what it says and then invite you up to talk with us for a moment? Excellent. All right, I'm going to stand up because it's important. The Soquel Union Elementary School District Board of Trustees Certificate of Recognition for our Student Pledge of Allegiance Leader and Mission Statement Reader. Alessandra Ballard, 5th grade student at Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary. Alessandra came to Santa Cruz Gardens in 5th grade and likes it because she's learning a lot and has really good friends. Reading is her favorite subject. In her spare time, Alessandra enjoys reading, swimming, and playing soccer. She also likes to help her grandparents in their garden. When she's older, she'd like to be a scientist. She's interested in rocks and fossils. Well, thank you, Alessandra. Would you like to come up and receive your certificate? We're so happy to meet you and so glad to have you here. You did an excellent job reading for us, so thank you. Is it okay if we ask you some questions about yourself? All friendly? Is that okay? All right.
Well, I had the pleasure of having a chat with Alessandra this morning at Santa Cruz Gardens and learned a lot about her and incredible things too. And where you're going to travel to. That's
Oh,
right, New Zealand.
Wow.
And that sounds like a lot of fun for the World Cup, right? Okay, and who's your favorite soccer player again? That's right. And she's a good player too. But it was I'll report out on when we report out on reports, but it was really great to hang out with you today. You're quite something too.
I wanted to ask you about gardening. What kind of plants do you like, or what do you like to do in the garden?
Yeah. Do you enjoy doing anything in the garden at school with Life Lab? You're planting things and taking out the weeds? That's awesome. Yeah. And then probably in the spring that you might be able to harvest some of the things you're planting, right? That's my favorite part. Yeah. And,
So what is your favorite? Is it fruit, vegetables, or flowers? Ah, okay. Good answer.
I always had an eye on the kiwi tree in that garden. I don't know how it's doing now. And they're persimmons. I can't remember if they're persimmons, but I like to take a look at that garden as well. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions from the table? Yeah.
Well, actually, where else have you been? Paris.
Mexico and Paris. Nice. That's awesome.
That is really, that's great too. What was your favorite part of Paris?
Hmm.
Great. That sounds like a lot of fun. Then you have a swim meet coming up too, right? We're talking about that and you're doing the butterfly. Or you know how to do the butterfly. I don't know how to do the butterfly.
It's hard.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm sure you'll do well.
Yeah, good luck.
Alessandra, I forgot to invite you to take, if you would like, a little notebook. We have little thank you gifts for our students who come to see us. We really appreciate you taking your time and your family taking the time to come see us and you getting our meeting off to the right start. And if you have any siblings at home who might like one, feel free to take more. But those are our little welcome and thank you gift to you and your family. So we're so glad to have you here. And I think we just want to give you one more big round of applause. Thank you, thank you. And then please, if you'd like to take a picture with us, if that's okay with you, yeah? And if your teacher is here or your principal, we'd like it if you would stand here in that little corner.
Then you can face this lady right here with the phone. Mom can get a photo.
Come on up.
Mr.
Yeah, don't worry about the
Yes.
TV.
All right. Oh, Kelly, a little bit, yep, ah, awesome. And smile. And one more, and everybody look at mom.
We usually like to put that up on our website. Is that okay? Okay.
Good job.
Awesome,
Good job.
awesome job. Thank you again.
Yeah.
All right. I know we have other students to celebrate this evening too, so thank you all for being here and good night. All right, our next item is the adoption of our agenda, and I think we might have a couple of little corrections before we adopt.
Yes, we do. So on the item for Principal Broadhurst's presentation, that was inadvertently listed as Soquel. Mr. Broadhurst has not moved to Soquel. He's presenting for Santa Cruz Gardens. And then on the 3 board policies in the consent agenda, they were all listed at the top correctly, but I put at the bottom, I left inadvertently for discussion. And since they're in consent, obviously that should have been listed as considered for approval.
Great. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with those corrections?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Here's that voice.
All right. Next is report out of closed session. The board did meet in closed session and on a vote of 5-0, the board voted to approve the comprehensive school safety plan part 2. Next up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt and approve the consent agenda with the changes to the policy items mentioned by the superintendent?
I move.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I didn't hear Robert, but Robert, did we? Okay.
Aye.
Sorry, it might have been me. I just couldn't hear. Thank you. Any opposed? All right. Consent agenda passes. Next, we have our recognition items. We're, I guess if you'd like to just introduce generally.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Every year the county puts on a great spelling bee and Soquel district always represents well. So we're going to talk about the students from our district who did well in the county spelling bee. Sorry.
All right. So students were invited to come and receive certificates. We realize that not everyone can be here, but we've got some 5th grade students and some 8th grade students. So I will read the names, and if you're present, please do come up and accept our certificate and our congratulations. We have, and I apologize if I mispronounce any names, please correct me. Our first is for Chan Mesa Chown, 5th grade. All right, we will, and for anyone who's not present, we will make sure this goes to the principal at the site and the student gets their certificate. Next is Elena Potes, 5th grade. All right. Thank you so much for being here and congratulations. Do you mind if we just ask you a couple questions about your experience? About the spelling bee? How did it go for you? Yeah.
You
did better than okay.
Yeah, you made it there.
Yeah.
Where were the spelling bees this year? Was it up at UCSC? Okay, still.
Any other questions? Yeah, it went okay. Did you enjoy the experience? Yeah, yeah. Would you do it again? Yeah.
So do you
Nope.
like reading a lot? It's a good place to learn a lot of words.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think a lot of times good spellers are also good readers. Thank you so much for answering our
Yeah,
questions. You might not have known we
too.
would do that, so thank you. That was very
Yeah.
gracious of you. And thank you to your family for being here. And I'll call Chris and then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm so sorry. I
If
keep
you
forgetting
practice
to
your
call.
spelling words.
Yeah.
Myself.
And then we'll see who else is here. And if you guys are okay with it, we could do a group photo. Is that all right?
Lovely.
Perfect. Next, we have Layla Hassani. All right, Layla is in 4th grade and we'll make sure she gets her certificate. Jonah Gardner, 5th grader. We'll make sure Jonah gets his certificate. Alana Caraselli, 6th grade. New Brighton student then. Congratulations to Alana. Olivia Potes, 8th grade. All right. We've seen you before. All right. Well, first of all, congratulations and thank you for being here this evening. Is it okay if we ask you a couple of questions about your experience?
But now you go to the state. Okay, I don't know what the next step was, but okay.
Had you ever done that before? Were the words harder?
Do you have a lot of classmates with you or a few? Uh-huh. Nice, nice.
So you still write, right? The word, okay. No Proxy there, okay. How
Are
long?
you a reader? Hey,
Oh, yeah.
and what do you like? Oh, okay.
Cool.
Great.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. We'll see if we have anyone else and then if you're, oh yeah, please, if you would like a notebook. Some of them are geared a little younger, but that's a good one. All right. And then we have, is there anyone, are any other students here? We have one more 8th grader. I believe it's Jaime Morales. All right. We will make sure that Jaime gets the certificate. So thank you both for being here. Is it okay if we take a picture of your certificate? We love being able to honor students' accomplishments. So if it's okay with you and your families, we could do a quick photo. Thank you.
All right.
All right, perfect.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
real quick. Oh, wait.
All right, now back this way. No, over here, just kidding.
Yeah, and you got yours, but you need mommy.
Okay, good.
And okay to put that on our website too? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. We so appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of practice.
Yeah, thanks for making our
Would you
evening.
like a little notebook? Yeah.
There you go.
Is this your first board meeting? Yeah. Well, if you.
It's
if
quite
you
exciting.
like,
You're gonna keep coming
one of
back.
our little
Pretty a lot of
books,
fun.
I don't know if you like, Dr. Seuss books or just other. Well, I think these actually are just notebooks where you could write your own Dr. Seuss story or your own story.
Have you had
And-
green eggs and ham? You ever tried a green eggs and?
No, but I have read the book.
Okay,
Excellent.
that's great.
Well, all of these are blank on the inside. If you want to write or draw anything on the inside, you help yourself, okay? All right.
You like dinosaurs?
Nice.
Well,
Right?
no, look
You
at
like
yours. I
to
like
back
that.
to together.
Yeah. We'll see you in a few years.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. All right. Can't resist. Can't resist
Right.
giving the goodies
Yeah.
away. All right. We're gonna roll on, and our next item is the public hearing regarding our 2022-23 Comprehensive School Safety Plan, Part 1.
So of course, there's an action item on this item later in the agenda for the public hearing, which I guess we should say is starting at 6:57. The public hearing is open on the Comprehensive School Safety Plan, Part 1. It's listed, the whole plan is listed in the agenda twice. And this would be the time if there's any public comment or input on it, we can take it now. You know,
I think
you're waiting for that. You're on the ready.
All
Hammer, the opening.
I did it very gently.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, I did a very gentle tap to open.
Even here.
All right, well, we've had the opportunity for in-person comment and nothing on email, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:58 by my computer clock. Next up is a public hearing for SEA's joint initial collective bargaining agreement proposal.
All right, so we are gearing up with our colleagues in SEA. And so again, this will be an action item later to consider approving the joint sunshine proposal. And so 6:58, we're opening the public hearing. Thank you. And so if there's any public comment about that joint proposal, this would be the time for the board to hear it.
All right.
Any emails?
Nothing on
All
email.
right.
All right. Well, seeing as we're not having any, don't have any in-person comments and no email comments, I will close the public hearing on this item at 6:59 p.m. And now we'll move on to public communications. As the agenda notes, in addition to speaking in person, the following channels are also available for public comment. People can email the board prior to the meeting and people can email during the meeting. So we do check after each item to see if an email has been received. Is there anyone present who would like to make public comment on anything that's not on our agenda? Thank you. None in person. Do we have any public communications via email?
Nothing on email.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then we're going to move on to our standing reports and we will start with our Assistant Superintendent, Michelle, please.
Hi, good evening, board. It's long time no see. Been a full 2 weeks since the last time we met. Had the opportunity to attend Capital Advisors. They are school services does their budget presentation, all the acronyms do their budget presentation, basically. Cash, CSBA, CASBO, school services, and Capital Advisors, all of them with a little bit of a different spin, and it's all always interesting. This go around really Capital Advisors interpretation of school services interpretation of the proposed January budget are pretty much in line. Not a lot of proposed changes. Some trailer language came out on some clarifying items. Some trailer language that came out that made things more confusing than the original proposal. So it was a little bit interesting. But all in all, it was a great presentation by Capital Advisors. Always appreciated, and it's local. So we don't have to drive to Sacramento, which I always appreciate. We had the opportunity to meet Steve Cartwright, and I had the opportunity to meet with Maddie, Andrew from Maddie, our architects that we have with us that helped us through the bond and our other many projects we've been working on, and Ross Recreation as well. We did a walkthrough of the SoCal Elementary playground for the new kindergarten upgrade. I know everybody's really excited. I'm really excited. I think everybody's most excited that the tan bark's going away. So we had an opportunity. I know, very excited. And so this was just really a preliminary for both our architects to get an idea if we have to go through any DSA approvals for anything, the footprint, and to talk about what size shade structure would logistically fit and kind of what would logistically fit in the footprint that we had. And so they will be working up some proposals of what can work and what might work. And then we'll have an opportunity to meet with the TK and Kinder staff at SoCal to get input from them on kind of design purposes. We're gearing more towards that playground. I'm not 100% certain. We looked at a lot of the equipment. It's not really, it's for 5-year-olds, but it's kind of like 5-year-olds and up. So for kinder, it did make sense because if first grade was ever in that area, it would be age appropriate. But now with TK, so 4 and 5-year-olds predominantly being in that area, it makes more logical sense to gear that towards like the 2 to 5-year-old age range on that particular playground. So that's kind of the equipment that we're looking at right now to stay within that time frame, because you want to make that. Those 4-year-olds are tiny and the bookkeepers are tall. So we're looking to make that more age appropriate and more inclusive. We're looking at opportunities to make it a more inclusive playground as well. So it was just really exciting to be able to talk about moving some of that stuff out of there and getting a new playground in. And really, we are with my new director on board. We're working on payroll and kind of transitioning me out and her in to the day-to-day functions. So most of my days are usually filled with training and transitioning our new staff, as well as our new staff in the front office, as we had those replacements now all come on board. And I want to say all the front offices are fully staffed at this point. They left a little holes in some other places we're filling, but we've got a good run going, and I'm pretty excited in business right now to be back to being fully staffed. So that's my report for the week. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I don't have anything like a TKK. But that is very exciting. Since the last time we met, I had a pretty nasty bout with COVID. I thought I was immune up until a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I am one of those people that just will never get COVID. You should never say that because it doesn't happen. But I'm happy to be back. I was obviously able to correspond with everyone while I was gone, but seeing people in person is just so much better. And we've been busy. So I think one of the things that the board knows is that in a recent board report, we talked about the dashboard. And our county leaders have kind of convened some of us at the ed services level and superintendent's level to talk about what that dashboard means. And also to talk about a label that we're now given, and that is we're in differentiated assistance, which means we didn't quite make the mark in some areas according to the state's required profiles for us. Fortunately, we're not alone. Most of the districts in our state are in the same position, and we're in differentiated assistance because of chronic absenteeism for certain groups of students. Chronic absenteeism is, of course, important. But when you have COVID-related legal restrictions from bringing kids onto campus, it almost makes it impossible to meet the criteria that the state has set. So we're talking about ways to mitigate that. So we understand that we're not the only ones in the boat. Doesn't mean we don't have to get out of the boat. So we're talking about all the processes that we can put into place to make sure that our kids are at school. They need to be at school. Including really just kind of looking at our SART process and SAR process and cost processes, and also looking at Opal Cliffs differently. We have a number of students who actually can acquire access to curriculum and instruction through that channel. And so we're looking at lining up some of our students who've missed quite a bit of school with the Opal Cliff structure. So that's a way that our district can mitigate some of this that other districts can't. So we're really happy that we're looking at that. We have a few curriculum and instruction work groups that are convening right now. Always my favorite topic. So we're going to be looking at one or more of the following 4 topics. Reading foundations, because we're seeing post-COVID, some of those reading foundation supplemental materials are needed. Same with numeracy foundations. So that's another work group that we're going to be convening. We are also super excited that the social studies adoption team is getting together. And lastly, our parent information and education work team. So really excited. I put the word out last week. And I have already gotten over a dozen teachers to volunteer to be part of those work groups. So that's really exciting. Our admin team has been working really hard and kind of digging into the most recent iReady diagnostic data. Our teachers, our awesome teachers, have been doing report cards and parent conferences, and some of what they report is information about how students are doing on those diagnostic assessments. But we actually have to use them beyond that, and they have to inform instruction. And so we're really kind of trying to work through what we're seeing through that information, not by student necessarily, like a teacher does, but like thematically, like what do we need to do organizationally? And then next Friday, we have our iReady trainer partners that are going to be working with our certificated staff and like, what do we do with this information that we're now receiving? And how do we translate that to the classroom? So that's really exciting. Our English language development teacher team got together today with me. And it's so interesting how times change. You know, we have curriculum that we've used that we've loved, and it's just the thing we use until you talk about how it's no longer useful. And so we have used Rosetta Stone as a digital platform for students to learn English who are not English speaking predominantly. But what they've done is they've kind of built onto what was an existing system, new system about 18 years ago. And there's new products, and there's a new product that's available called Lexia, and it aligns with the LPAC, and it can provide our students a different interface, but also it can allow our ELD teachers and our classroom teachers to see how students' language acquisition in English lines up with the assessments that we're giving them through the state of California and what we can do about that. So it's really great that we meet with those teams. The other thing that we found is that if we have an at-home resource for students to access to acquire English, they really want gamification. And so Duolingo is one of those that we're exploring, especially at the middle school level. Let's see, mid-year review for the LCAP, super important. The community forum was great. One of the things that leads to the LCAP is our site SIPSA plans. So every school has their own, they have their metrics, actions, all of the resources that are aligned. So all the principals are working with their leadership teams to go through those. And then from that, we can get some more information about how to inform the LCAP that's coming up. We were able to go to a meeting at the county very recently and talk about what the new LCAP is going to be. I just love when they say like the new LCAP, because like every year it's like the new LCAP.
New improved, huh?
The new improved every year. It's exciting always to enhance our systems, to improve them. This year, we're going to be looking at really more deeply looking at our marginalized students and some metrics around those statewide, not our district or our county, but statewide. Our MTSS coaches in our district, Carla's one, I am one, Scott is one, are working with our site teams. Those are going really well. Work in progress. It's not like a one-day thing. It's multiple year, but we have about 90 classified and certificated staff members who are going through the certification pathway. And I think Carla's probably ahead of everybody so far in the certification process, but they are really, really good. They're not easy. It seems like it's going to be easy. It's not easy. It's a lot more difficult than it seems. But the outcome is going to be so good. We're going to have some common language. We're going to have some common understanding, and we're really going to have a great foundation to start some of that discussion about the systematic work. And then you probably receive my educational services monthly through your email. If you haven't checked your email yet, you can, and you'll find it there. It started off as just kind of this like low stress way of providing information to people. Because like people read a lot of things. They don't want to read stuff that I send them all the time. So they can go to it if they want to. Turns out we've got 622 viewers, which is like 6 times as many teachers as we have. It's pretty amazing. And we have people who view us like in Moscow and Berlin and all over the place. So I think it's something that's pretty good. But I shared it with you just so you can see some of the things we're looking at. We're looking at brain research. We're looking at some of the current books that are out there. We're looking at things for Black History Month, anti-racism, all kinds of different topics come up each month. But it's a, like I said, a low stress way of looking at new information. And the last thing is we met with our substance abuse and prevention team this week. And we have Deputy Christopher Koenig coming out March 6th and 8th to meet with our students at New Brighton and our parents at New Brighton respectively to talk about tobacco use and anti-vaping. So that's exciting too. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a shout out that even though we missed it for the board meeting last week was National Counselor Awareness Week. And so thankful this year to have a counselor in every school site. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledged their special week last week. And we will make sure that they are included when we celebrate all our employees later on in the year. We're nearing full implementation of the Stop It app. So right now we're still working on it behind the scenes. The Stop It app is a well-known app for anonymous reporting of bullying or potential incidents that students can have on their phone and submit anonymously, and it's well branded and slick and easily accessible on the phone. So we're working on behind the scenes administrative part of that, but hope to have it operational by the end of the month. We did an equity walk last week, Friday at Santa Cruz Gardens. Several of us went. And Craig was an excellent host. And we toured the whole school and really looked at everything through the lens of rigor and relevance and relationships and cultural identity. I think I got all four, right?
Yeah.
And so different teams look at different components. And but like any of those kind of events, the meat and the power and the energy was in the dialogue and the conversation, which was rich. And so we'll get a full report on it from Nicole Anderson, who led us through it. And we'll be able to share that more with the board on Friday update so that you can see all the details of that. But it really was great dialogue and lots of examples of equity-based practice at the school that we can all be proud of. And then we also have the Racial Justice Task Force meeting tomorrow night virtually to get rebooted and continue our equity journey with that part of what we've done on that equity journey between the board, administrative team, and also this Racial Justice Task Force. So we're very excited to reconvene with them. That's all for me.
All right, thank you. Next, we will go to items from CSEA. Enrique.
Our next meeting for CSA will be next Wednesday at 6 o'clock, February 2nd. Sorry about missing our meeting last Thursday. You postponed it and then I couldn't make it to that time, so I apologize for that. So I look forward to meeting next Thursday. Right? Amanda in the nutrition system cafeteria. Seems like all her staff is happy. They like the new menus and new things that she's bringing to the schools. I haven't heard any complaints, and I spoke with one of our representatives for the department, and I can't keep digging to find something, so I talk to Main Street representatives, SoCal, Brighton, and Santa Cruz Gardens, and everyone seems pleased. They just went back up the report, everything's going well, so I think that's great news. Sasha did want me to tell you that she's happy, or we are happy, that the people that are participating in the MTS modules and stacking that goes with it, we're all happy about that as well. No, I haven't started it, but I will start it before the end of the year. We want to thank Carissa for getting that all going for us as well too. And that's all I have for this week. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up will be SEA.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for having me. Hello, Bono. Grateful to be back here in front of you all, cabinet superintendents. Congratulations, Jen, for the position. Thankful to be here as an educator and as the lead for our behavior inclusion team. I have a statement prepared here. I'm going to read on behalf of our Educators Association. As usual, we have some great things happening in our districts. Main Street is preparing for another author visit through our partnership with Bookshop Santa Cruz. On March 31st, we will welcome the #1 New York Times bestselling author, Catherine Applegate, to our campus. Catherine Applegate is the author of The One and Only Ivan, winner of the Newbery Medal, The One and Only Bob, Wish Tree, Crenshaw, and Otter, which takes place in our own Monterey Bay. During her visit, she will share her newest title, Doggo and Pupper Search for Cozy, to our 1st through 3rd grade classes. Main Street would like to invite all board members and district office staff to join us as we welcome Catherine Applegate on March 31st at 8:45. On Friday, February 10th, Santa Cruz Gardens had an equity walk, as Scott mentioned. During the equity walk, participants walked through the site with a lens focused on equity. It was not a time to pass judgment, but a time to observe our district-wide commitment to equity and inclusive practices in action, and where necessary, notice where we can make improvement. And I'd like to make a personal note as well as our behavior inclusion team lead. My work as the behavior inclusion team lead is driven by our multi-tiered systems of support and CSS and our capacity building efforts towards being a district that models inclusion and equity. At each site I've worked at, I have been honored and inspired to see the depth of care and teamwork that has been at the ready. This is particularly so in my 2nd year as the behavior inclusion team lead, having built more rapport across the district with teachers, admin, families, students, and most certificated and classified movers and shakers, or maybe in this line of the work, The better terms would be caretakers, motivators, and hope farmers. As a district, out of necessity and devoted professionalism, I have seen firsthand at the ground level our growth in the practices of trauma-informed care. This can be summed up in seeing especially our adult professionals and also our students, our kids asking the question, why our children may feel or act the way they are presenting and what they can do to help, rather than chalking up a judgment and ultimatum. This is the heart of trauma-informed, inclusive, and equitable practice. I can see from firsthand that our board-approved and resource-driven initiatives around equity and MTSS are yielding beneficial results, just as we studied as model and theory from the Waters of Systems Change article and our equity work with consultants, Drs. Nicole Anderson and Shelley Holt in our Racial Justice Task Force. I'd also like to thank you to the cabinet for approving a seminal conference opportunity. Jessica and I were just talking about, very excited for your admin and teachers. It's February 23rd to 26th, entitled Meeting for Equity, which we will be sending admin and teachers to. Now, as we make our way through the 21st century together as a district family of professionals, doing what we all consider to be the most important work, we are answering a call we see on the news and in data to focus on measures of equity, mental health, behavior, and social emotional learning. We are making the needed moves as professionals and change makers to disrupt the status quo and utilize the tool belt of strategies and pathways facilitated by our statewide grant to grow our capability in the MTSS realms of behavior, social emotional learning, and academics. Despite our questions of future financial sustainability and growth, we are here for safety, progress, and growth for our everyday kids and families.
Thank you. All right, that was great. Trustees, this is our opportunity to report out on any meetings or conferences we've attended, visits to schools, anything else we'd like to report out. Anyone particularly want to start?
I went to the LCAP forum. That was great to see just the whole process. We've really been preparing for that. And then I was actually able to participate in the equity walk at Santa Cruz Gardens. So great to start to see that work in action.
Okay, I had a blast this morning. I went to Santa Cruz Gardens and had a chat with Alessandra, our pledge leader, and got to know her. And I mean, New Zealand and Paris and Mexico, I barely make it out of the driveway. And went in some of the classrooms, and the students are very personable. Walked in and one student popped up and said, "Oh, hey, can I help you? What do you need to know?" So the students were great, and also I had to hang out with the superintendent principal too. But anyways, they were fine. They were good guys as well.
Not as fun as the students.
No, the students were a lot of fun. It was fun going into the classrooms and visited the living classroom too. And now, right, and that Craig's going to speak a little bit about that tonight, and then the Sage Garden. And the office was well staffed and welcoming in there. It's a real nice office. And I haven't been at the campus for a little while, so the solar panels, I saw those there, and that looks great. Nice shade parking too. Cafeteria. Everything was great at the school, but I especially liked the students there. They seemed, personable. They conversationalists, what else? I mean, it was just good to see them.
Collaborative.
Thank you. Yeah. Exactly. All the words. Let's bring out all the words. But anyways, it was a great visit this morning. And it was fun meeting up with our pledge leader too this morning as well.
I just have to come. I think that was a great idea, tying the day when the principal is going to present and they're going to have their pledge leader and doing a visit that day. It's nice to tie it all together. So great idea.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, so I also attended the LCAP Community Forum. And for me, the favorite's always to tour the kitchen, and we get to go in there and it usually does drift away from kitchen questions when we're in there, but it's a great opportunity for parents to actually go backstage and see places that they never will see. So and we'll talk more about that later. And I took an opportunity to come here earlier today so that I could take a look at the windows and I will tell you, I am in mini split heaven, man. And so we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, right.
That's it for me.
Thank you. I also attended the LCAP Community Forum. I kind of wanted to give a shout out. Last week was conference week, and just a special shout out as in my parent hat as someone who got to attend a conference, recognizing all of the hard work that our staff put into preparing for the conferences and report cards. I know many hands touch those, and it's a lot of effort going into communicating with our families and making sure our families are understanding where our students are and what their needs are. So just some appreciation from me for conference week. Also, I look forward to attending the Racial Justice Task Force meeting tomorrow, since I'm the board representative on that group. And that's it for me. And I think we all got our turns.
Robert, don't miss
Sure.
that.
Okay, I'm really bad. Sorry, Robert. I'm very bad at Zoom sometimes.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a little temperature adjustment and then,
Close your door.
Yeah, why don't close the door, yeah.
all
You
right.
guys are the door monitors.
Yeah, it's trying to hit you outside.
I'm
There we
so
go.
sorry, Robert.
Not at all, not at all. This is a little out there for me too, but I'll just briefly chime in. I went to the LCAP Community Forum. I'm going to dovetail on what Amanda said too. I'm so appreciative for our staff and putting that together and have everybody so involved and engaged with our families. Just kudos to everybody for the setup, you know, obviously the takedown and their time that was involved with that. I think that's just a great showing. And then to have so many people there, I loved seeing all of the tables filled. You know, it was like every spot at those tables was filled up. It was really neat to see all the parents and the people just engaged and staying for that after the band. I kind of had this idea that once the band stopped, they were all parents of the band and everybody was going to leave. And I was so glad my fear didn't pan out and had to have all those parents stay for that. Was great. I also attended the Aptos Rotary Club meeting Monday night. I thought that was really neat. They are very excited to partner up with us. And I think if we can find something, they would be really interested in working with us on a number of different avenues. So, and that's it for me.
All right, thank you so much. All right, on to our presentation item, our first presentation from Climate Tech. Michelle, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes,
Thank
good
you.
evening, board. I know you have all met, and I don't know in person. Has it always been Zoom in person? We had live in person meetings. It seems so long ago. Tyler from Climate Tech, he's joining us this evening to give a better in-depth presentation of our infrastructure upgrade than I could possibly give. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tyler. They put together a PowerPoint presentation for you guys.
Great. Good evening, trustees. Thank you for your time, staff, community. Appreciate it. Tonight, we're just going to go through briefly our update and show pictures of progress, you know, not only, you know, obviously going out and seeing the solar at Santa Cruz Gardens, but just what else is happening throughout the campuses. And a lot that's done behind the scenes to actually have this infrastructure improvements and the capabilities of your sites. So in summary, all the projects that we've been implementing are here. Water conservation, which was one of the first measures that we've implemented to really help staff stay on top of water use and irrigation and really be able to monitor that remotely. LED lighting and windows. Obviously, you've seen me brighten here with brand new windows, and all the lighting has been taken care of 100% complete. Electrical upgrades. This was needed for we added air conditioning loads just because the service coming in for PG&E and the switchgear were dated, didn't have enough capacity. And so to be able to upgrade and modernize that infrastructure is very important, not only for the added air conditioning, but just it's newer infrastructure, which is great to have for the campuses. So that's 100% done. And thanks to PG&E, and obviously thanks to staff, PG&E came in and was able to turn everything on, even in the midst of the huge rainstorm and the outages going on. We were shocked that they even showed up. We did call them about 20 times, but they did come out and make sure that happened. So that was huge. HVAC replacements are all taken care of. We have some pictures of that. And then the new air conditioning, you've seen the ductless, the splits out there, the condenser units, but also at Santa Cruz Garden, obviously hope to have that finished by late spring, early summer, as you see here. Building automation that controls heat and cooling, those are being completed as well. And gives Steve and the team
the ability to adjust remotely, obviously being a 1 to 2 man team over there in facilities, have the ability to log in if a teacher's having an issue or they need to adjust temperatures, they're able to do that remotely, which is a huge, whereas before, you'd have to drive out and make all the changes, right? So, and then the renewables, you've obviously seen the solar PV implemented at 2 sites, and that should be interconnected with PG&E, hopefully over a break. Which is once that's connected, we get a PTO, which is permission to operate, and then you are producing your own power and really reducing your load and saving money. The key thing to that is even this last year with the price escalations, and you've seen it on your own utility bills, but 27% increase for commercial, for average across rates is huge, and now you're able to produce your own power for that, which is great. And then the 2 projects for New Brighton and SoCal, which will be implemented this summer. The new array locations for New Brighton, and obviously on the roof, as discussed, and then SoCal Elementary, moving that because of the other, built out strategies for the other areas across campus and looking at that site for the solar PV layouts. These are the existing conditions, so this is what was there prior to implementing the projects with you folks. Oh, sorry, going back, obviously, that's a cooling tower in the top left, that's at Main Street, that cools the entire site. And obviously you can see the age and the rust on that. That was a typical thermostat on the bottom left-hand corner, and obviously the windows have been brightened for it. The new electrical on the left, which is here at New Brighton. You have the ductless mini splits with the cages that are going in around campus to provide the air conditioning within the space. You have the new cooling tower on the right, which will get another 20 years of equipment life there for that system. And obviously irrigation controls and some of the new electrical there at Santa Cruz. There's Steve Cartwright. Working hard. I was working. The windows here, as you can see, the operational windows were relocated to be in a different location from the condensers to actually provide better air input when needed in the classroom and to reduce noise from the units as well. So that's been done, and that was done over break. The solar PV, you have Santa Cruz Gardens and Maine here in terms of those layouts, and obviously you saw that on the equity walk.
Yes.
I think that's it. So update on where we're at, and hopefully be completed with most of the projects late spring, summertime, and leave you guys with the new kicks. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Where was I? Santa Cruz Gardens. How are you going to connect the solar power to power at the school? It's not connected at this time, is it?
It's right there. It's right where the service is for PG&E. We just have to wait for them to come out and they're connected. And so what we did is we bored underneath the ground.
Oh,
and
okay.
ran the wire underneath the ground to the electrical service.
Okay.
And then it comes up. The boring technology is like a mini drone.
Yeah, it's like a patches,
that
yeah.
goes underneath the ground.
Right, okay, I didn't think of that.
Then the wire comes with it and goes into where the location would be to connect into the switchgear. And so that's how it's connected. We have to wait for them to do a power shutdown and then connect it, and then they do it and bring it up.
Okay.
And then we get PTO after that. It's just a cable thing after that.
And then in terms of teacher classrooms, do the classrooms have thermostats, or that's yours explaining that's manned by us?
That's being
Location?
implemented, right? The finishing touches on that, but with the new air conditioning, there's new thermostats, and Pelican thermostats, even on the existing ones where there's existing air conditioning. So it'll be new thermostats that'll be Wi-Fi enabled remote connectivity. And there's also a document I think that's been shared regarding how to control those as well. So that
Within the classroom, yes.
within.
So within the classroom,
within the classroom, yeah.
They were removed, right? For
They
the,
still can go up and down, certain separately, but not, up to 78 heating, right?
Yeah.
In terms of it, just because, especially the attack on gas, it's costly for gas. Right?
Yeah.
So,
But if, for example, I'm sorry, I was gonna say, so if, for example, something strange happened, schools needed to be closed at a time they would normally be open, someone like maintenance or something could remotely using Wi-Fi
Exactly.
lower the temperatures across the board without going to each site.
The key thing on these systems is not to, it's to improve comfort and improve light levels, right? But it's to make sure everything's optimal. When students, and teachers are in it, that's the main thing versus having to run on the weekends for somebody, because we're all humans, we all forget to turn off things, right? It is what it is, and now the systems are in place to be able to catch that and then turn it off. And, you know, the training, even if we need to do more with Steve and the team, to be able to program that and spring breaks and all those types of things, we're there to support and help. So same thing with the irrigation as well, in terms of how much is needed of water in certain areas at certain times, and looking at the weather and all those types of things is now within your controls versus having mechanical systems in there and being set to a, you know, a predetermined time frame, right? And having your team have to go around and find those spots, which I share myself. So.
I think we have a question from Principal Broadhurst.
Well, when you finish that.
Okay. Well, gotcha. Okay. Yes.
So, at the SoCal, slide where, for the placement, are those panels, can those panels be right there next to the sidewalk?
They can based on our engineering, that's what our team has.
Yeah,
as engineering
okay.
in terms of-
It looks closer than it is, because I did have that exact same question to make sure we were within compliance of county ordinance on having the array right along that fence line, and we are, and I think it's not as close as you think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that is there a driveway under it or next to it that goes in?
It's the same array, the parking lot is not changing,
Right,
so
so cars pass under the,
No,
round.
around, and then they can go into that area and circle in and move out.
all right, so behind that bottom end of that is
Yeah,
where they come.
that,
This is what we need to find out.
Yeah,
and then, yeah.
you come around like you normally would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of the discussion on, we did want to try to change the array of the parking lot to try to maximize more parking spaces if we could
Right.
within building this. Some of the questions that came up were fire and life, right? Like the arrays have to be at a certain height
Right,
in order for, fire and life to be able to get in there. Ambulances and fire trucks. And so that's kind of why we decided to not change the array
Right.
of the parking lots, like the stalls, right? Leave it kind of as is, because fire and life can get in, and then the panels will be as much non-intrusive as possible.
okay, and then, at the new Brighton line. At the new Brighton site is, will that impact the practice fields at all? The placement of the
No,
Question.
no.
PV,
Where these are going, our plans for field upgrades are still in place.
right, but I mean, I saw kids out there practicing today, so I mean, are they gonna like break our solar? When
No.
when they hit
No,
the home run,
No,
okay.
Get that home run.
Well,
I did
it's
ask them.
there. See
Yeah,
that-
yeah, I know, right.
Can you get
Yeah.
to that slide?
okay.
See that one there? That big one right there on the ground is right where it's in right field.
Yeah, right, yeah.
That field is literally, that field right there,
Yeah,
they're not even past the.
Our softball teams, they play in Monterey Park, right?
Yeah, the older kids play at the Monterey Park.
Yeah.
okay,
We talked about that too, but I mean, it was kind of along the lines of, we have to have a,
somewhere. yeah.
superstar in the making, which would be awesome if we
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
10-year-old that could hit the ball that far, but I don't think we will.
Right,
Can
and I-
we? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And at the mini splits I saw here, so you have a picture of one on there too.
Right there,
You're right, that one is not hooked up, right?
they are not connected at this
Okay.
point in time.
Because I thought,
They're not
wow, they put,
operational or running.
Yeah.
so the first thing I said was, oh, they put all the wires underground. And that, no,
They're connected.
right, okay. So we're gonna have pipe coming out of that to wherever,
Right into the unit itself.
right?
Yeah.
Not right.
At the wall.
Yeah, at the wall.
Oh,
You know,
Yeah.
perfect.
like right there. Yeah, it's not gonna be.
I have to applaud you for all the footings that you put in there for every one of these. That's really nice. Looks nice.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Good work.
Yeah, exactly.
TSA just had the vision. but-
They did, yeah.
In 1962.
And then New Brighton, I mean, that's the field, right? So it's gonna kind of look more like Main Street where it's lower and it's on the grass.
It won't be on the grass. It'll be up. It's a shade structure. Yeah.
But it'll be
so
like
you
more
can
like
put tables
a street
underneath of
or-
it, there's plugins, it can be used as an outdoor learning, type of space.
Soccer
Like
field.
10, 12 feet up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
it's-
You mean it'll be like,
It's,
right? Like,
Yeah, and, but I guess it
It's
just
not
didn't
high.
work in the
Like that.
parking lot area, just that seems to me more traditional to do it in the
Like
parking
that.
lot area. But I mean, it must not have worked,
It's-
could
yeah.
you just explain that or tell us about that?
sure, yeah, in terms of looking at the parking, there's obviously looking even at south of the campus as well. Many trees and issues there in terms of the structure. And then also when you're planning it out, looking at the L structure is more expensive and costly versus the T structure and having to be dual purpose for the shade out there, and those were the determining factors. We've gone through DSA, that's all been approved, all the steel's been ordered, and everything's moved forward on that, but those are the reasons typically. So when you're looking at parking, it's typically those are the types of reasons about why you look at shade. We are doing more shade structures right now than we are doing parking shade. All throughout California,
Right.
even Bayview over at Santa Cruz City Schools, Pajaro. It's all shade, even up at SLV USD at the elementary campuses, it's all shade structures for the most part. So about 85-90% of that, because they just like the dual purpose and the ability of the plugins, the tables underneath of it, and kids going out there and having it be a congregation area. That's typically where we see schools in the last 3 to 4 years now. So
Thanks for.
It'd be nice to have the solar panels with that have NB. So then when we fly over, there's.
Like that.
some branding.
Yeah, it's good branding.
So the question on the specs on the solar, is it 100% or greater
it's not 100%.
of need?
Yeah, it's not. No.
Should we, I would ask that we think about 150% because we'll have more electrical stuff in the future.
I'm not tracking. Do you mind
So
explaining a little? more?
the panels provide electricity.
Right.
Do they provide 100% of what we need?
But
no.
you said no. Right,
No.
right.
And so I'm asking that in the future.
Yeah.
That we plan to provide 150% of what we need, because we're gonna need to grow.
I was. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, this project is complete the way that it is, and
Right.
we got them to where we need to be almost, we got pretty close at a lot of our sites, really high up there on the size of our structures
Yeah.
to take that into account.
Right.
Part of it is also, when you think about it, like high schools, they have these massive parking lots, right?
Sure.
Because you got all the kids driving and, we've got middle school and elementary sites. And so it has to come down to the space and, when we went into this, we had long conversations about also being very cognizant of our environment. Like we were trying to be, more better on our environment. I don't want to take 150 trees down to put a solar structure up, right? Like that's kind of.
The entire view.
Yeah, to put the solar up.
Right.
So, we were limited in how much, but I think we did good.
Yeah, and you guys hit it at perfect timing, because now the rules are changing at the state level, which you've seen. And it's going to basically reduce the financial benefit of renewable energy, especially for schools, by 25 to 30%. And so you guys hit it right at the right timing. You're in the NEM 2.0, which is net energy metering 2.0 rules and guidelines are grandfathered in. So you're going to get the maximum benefit of your renewable energy for 20 years, which is huge.
Right.
So, and others aren't in that position. We've talked about that, that are
Yeah.
trying to scramble right now to do it. And it takes a lot more effort to be able to do it, because guess what? PG&E doesn't want to approve those plans because they lose revenue. And so they want you to be in the NEM 3.0, which is the next one, which is advantageous to them because they get more revenue back. So you guys are in the NEM 2.0, which is financially beneficial. You guys obviously hit this project at the right time. So good vision.
I just have to echo that because we met today, the CBOs met for our monthly meeting today. And yeah, we're ahead of everyone in the county right now with installation. I think Climate Tech is working with SLV PV and with city schools. Actually, we had our connection through city schools, but wait times now are just exponentially bad for my counterparts, but I get to happily say we are on track. And just to say, there's nothing, nothing but wonderful things about, say, working with Climate Tech. We've had a great experience. They're very responsive. They're on it. Like anytime I call, you guys answer. And take into consideration any questions staff has. You guys have anything like that. And it was really nice to hear, just for your benefit, was echoed from my counterparts from every district you work with. So we appreciate your partnership.
It's great working with you guys. You have wonderful staff. In construction projects, you always hit speed bumps. You always hit speed bumps. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And the calmness and the tonality and the ability to work through that together. Because, there's other things that we can't control, DSA, PG&E, underground, and the ability to go into a meeting knowing that we got to figure this out together. We're a team. And that, a lot of kudos back to you, Michelle, personally. And Steve has been great to work with and a great partnership. So thank you guys very much for our partnership and look forward to completing it successfully.
I have a real quick question. Yeah, sustainability and irrigation. I know, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, you did your conclusion. Sustainability and irrigation, you see down the road, use of recycled water.
Yeah.
Purple pipe? Yeah,
Water, is that?
yes, it's called purple pipe. Is
Right,
really-
okay,
But the recycled water, the issue with recycled water is getting it from where it's
Right.
being, treated to the location. And that is a very costly endeavor that is typically brought on by a city or a water purveyor in the area that would most likely need some sort of bond or some tax issuance to be able to fund that, because you're digging up streets and you're laying down
right.
all new pipe. The one thing that your school district could potentially do, it will go that way. It's just gonna take a lot of time and a lot of money to be able to do that, in terms of it. And that's the most difficult thing. But right now, you guys are set up for what you can do and what you can manage and what you can control. You have the technology to be able to do that.
You see how green Calabasas is now? So, I mean, they're using all recycled water for meetings and, it used to be a desert out there and now it's green.
Calabasas Elementary.
No, I'm just talking about the city. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's why I shut that down to Malibu.
Not yet. Gas money. Yeah.
Sorry, my mind went straight to the.
It just means how
Yeah.
green it is, so, all right.
So not recycled water, but water harvesting, is that something that we could do?
Rain capture.
Yes,
Also, the funding isn't there for that, and it's minimal in terms of what you can capture on a site alone. You would most likely have to look at runoff and capture from buildings, and then you would look at a treatment of that as well. Because
it
you
has
have
to be
other
treated.
chemicals and things that, hitting the roof, coming
Yeah,
down the
okay.
pipes. You have other things that, especially if kids are playing on it, you have to treat it, and then you have to maintain that equipment, and you have,
right.
there's a lot to that. And
Yeah.
especially with the codes in
Not gonna-
California,
Not gonna do the
Sorry.
treating, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the, you were talking about our rate level at PG&E. If we wanted to expand, would we still be at that?
No.
I received.
But I wouldn't go, it's a really good thing from a green perspective. And if you paid capital for that expansion, you could, but here's the issue. Once you overproduce your overall load for that campus site, you sell it back to PG&E and you benefit them financially. So you would actually pay X amount for the array, and then they buy it back from 3 cents or 4 cents.
Right.
Versus getting the full 24-cent value of that renewable energy. And so, and again, being green, being net zero energy, you can push that limit, that can be there and that can be achievable, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, you got to watch the financial metrics of that when you start eclipsing that 100%. And that's where in the future, one thing that I would mention to that point, and that could help you, would look at more battery storage when it becomes more cost effective. Battery storage, a lot of people like to, push it and like to sell it, but it's still not cost effective. The self-generation incentive program by the state is not there for commercial projects. They're putting, if you want to do it on your home, by the way, go do that, because CPUC just passed regulations to actually give you a lot of money for your residential home to have battery storage. So, but not for school sites.
Yeah.
Not for cities. And it's still expensive, and it only does 2 hours, 4 hours. We were looking at Pajaro, a couple of sites, because they use a lot of power. And it's just the cost versus the benefit isn't there. It's still sadly generators.
Yeah.
Until they reduce those costs like solar is now, battery storage, and have it be more mass produced. And we get out of this whole market volatility issue that we have from COVID. So, but that's where it could go when you get to that point, or you have additional capital, is to do additional renewable with battery storage when it's more cost effective.
Okay, makes sense.
There's still a dream.
Yeah. Aspiration.
There was just two other items, real quick that we didn't hit on, and that was the generator at New Brighton. In the pack, which has now been installed, and they're working on the last of that now, I believe. So I'm really happy. New Brighton, the pack is a Red Cross, emergency evacuation center. So now we have the generator there for sustainability in an emergency.
Mhm.
And then the EV station that's being installed here in this parking lot. Those two upgrades are still as part of the project as well. And
In this
moving
parking
on.
lot?
Yes, in this
Oh,
parking
okay.
lot. George is very upset. He has to lose his parking space.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to say, I got a 10-minute lecture today from Mr. Rucker, from PV, who is their CBO, on the difference between NEM 0.20 and NEM 0.30. So I think I might be able to keep up with you now.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Yes, Robert on Zoom.
Sorry. So is there an EV station going to be at each location, or is it only one at New Brighton?
Currently just New Brighton, but we have talked about expanding that to the elementary sites.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of our teachers and staff would appreciate getting those over there too.
Yeah, we have still have to put the finishing touches on what that would look like as far as the accessibility, who has access to it, at what time they have access. New Brighton made more sense for our first one because it's in the yard, so we can control it better. And then look at moving out to the elementaries. But yes, I do agree. I think the need is out there.
So what are those costs?
There'll be more funding coming down the pipeline too.
Yeah,
That was the
I heard about that.
And
Yeah.
and happy to, keep you abreast of that.
I mean, roughly, what are those costs?
All depends on the size and what you're trying to do. There's 3 different levels of charger, level 1, level 2, and level 3. The
Yeah.
supercharger can charge your car in 25 minutes. But that's expensive.
Right.
You know, it's like
right.
250, 300,000 just for the station, right?
Yeah.
I mean. There's some, and that's where,
That's why they have them at Whole Foods. Yeah. They do. Yeah.
Newsom's big push is with the, having the money in the transportation.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
not trickling down.
Well, they're pushing going green on all of our buses by 33, 35, like we're supposed to have all.
I want to see a
EV.
bus that lasts 3 years. That's,
You have, and then we don't have the ability, schools don't have the ability to have EV stations installed to support the buses themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So we're trying to look, it would be wonderful to have a fully electric fleet, white and yellow. But I don't know if that will be within my lifetime, but it would be a great goal to have. So it's just.
That's a great area to be able to, not only sustainability, but just the lack of hills. Like versus other places.
Right.
You still have them, don't get me wrong. But,
Yeah.
But, some of the El Dorado counties want to really go that way and they're pushing that way. And it's like, you get like 2 hours, hour out of your bus,
Right.
no air conditioning either. Turn off the air conditioning.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
all
I
right,
think we've
thank
got
you.
all the board questions, but I know we have got some audience questions.
Mr. Doe, you have a question? I do, but you're retiring, so.
Oh. Respect.
I think question first of all, that caught my attention when you're talking about the mole that does the burrowing.
Yeah.
Where does the dirt go? It creates a pipe. Behind, doesn't it?
A huge pile on the other side. I've seen it.
But like the
Yeah.
remote control. mole,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a board that goes, I've seen it, but you're right. I mean,
How do you get the dirt out of it?
that's a Bobby question.
It started, well, I can tell you from New Brighton, it started by Steve's office and ended up by Johan's classroom. So.
So does Johan have a new pile of dirt? Or?
We took it away. Yeah.
So the other question I had is with all the solar arrays, I would assume, hopefully correctly, that we'll get some savings, percentage savings in utility bills. Do we know what that is going to?
Each site is different in terms of offset, but the overall program is going to provide 8.3 million in life cycle savings for the district.
$8.3 million.
Correct. Over the life of the
Okay,
systems.
yeah.
20 years, you said? What's the life cycle?
The life cycle on solar is 30 years.
Yeah.
But energy efficiency 15, lighting similar and that type of, But you take it out to the life of those systems and it's about $8.3 million.
And then you double that for schools.
And that's not including the 22%, you know, in our estimates and our calculations. So it's probably gonna be higher with all the escalations of utility. Because more you produce it, the more you use it on site, the more it's worth.
Yeah, Mr. Dolmo.
Would you be opposed if I took a picture of that New Brighton?
I mean, we could probably.
It's in the
figure-
docket.
public.
It's.
Yeah, it's in the docket.
All right, and then I have a couple other questions. When do you start?
That construction is all gonna be this summer.
Okay, so it's summertime.
Yeah, all the steel's been ordered, DSA's approved it, which is a big long process with DSA. Everything's
So July,
like
probably
June.
June. Okay. And then how long will it take? Just curious.
New Brighton will be done by the summer. In the summer.
And
And
then
all what materials are ordered, we have the panels ready.
the panel, sorry, just asking, so I don't have to Steve, if Steve gets like. Anyways, Steve's my boss, so I always ask him, why can't we put it on jet? Because it's not stable. Why can't we put it on the blacktop? Because that's be 15 feet from here. Why can't we put it there? Because it can't be next to trees. So I'm like, aren't they fruit? Can't you come down? But anyways.
He's got an answer.
Panels. How many panels are you putting, not on the roof and not next to the studio at New Brighton? If you go back, I can show you.
I don't have a quantity. I don't know that.
There are two 100-foot panels.
And then
right,
how
each
many
panel is
pillars-
100
how many
feet long?
pillars For each panel.
The panel itself is not,
The full array, I
Yeah,
should say,
So it
right?
looks like there's two right there
yeah,
on the next to the buildings.
correct.
How many pillars does it are under each one? You
I
know?
would say either four to six.
The whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah, six, I would say 3 piece.
Fantastic.
All right, any other questions from our audience? All right. Well, we're just gonna check and see if we have any email questions, because it could be the first time that someone emailed with a question.
And they did.
They did.
Except it really doesn't apply to this, but I shall read it.
Okay.
This is from Donna Renee Martin. I'm wondering if electrical will also be upgraded at Main Street. We can't run two small appliances in the kitchen at the same time without tripping the surge protector. Is an upgrade to the site on the horizon, which is not quite the work you guys are doing, but DR, I will look into it and we will get some Pedro out there to take a look at our electrical. We do have that problem everywhere. So our buildings weren't
That's
built,
nice.
yeah, to hold that much electricity.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome,
Put
thank
a
you so
penny in
much.
that thing. Put a penny in that fuse box. you
I know, right? Gotta break it.
We're working on to it.
I would say when you sign up or run for school board, you don't necessarily know the things you're gonna learn about and be interested in, right? This was not on my list of things I thought I'd be interested in and learn about, but thank you, you've made it
You want
really.
solar and battery storage for your house, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Also hot tips, so I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
We thank you very much, Tyler, for joining us. Tyler
Yeah.
is coming to us from Arizona.
Well,
Ah.
Yes, so
Oh, come on.
I know, but you
I'm
know.
up here every week.
You are every week. But we appreciate you taking the time to come to our meeting. Thank
I
you.
thought Arizona was a bad word.
I mean, we can see why you might want to come spend some time here in California.
I have to say though, I never do get from you guys, oh no, don't let me come down to your beach area.
Yeah, thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, have a good night. Thank you. All right.
Thanks, George.
Mhm. Thanks, George. All right, next up in a moment. Oh, no problem. Yeah. Does anyone else need a stretch break? Yeah,
I could,
okay.
Came on, huh?
yeah.
Mhm. Feels good.
Good timing.
Rated chocolate stash.
Are we
brought
going
some. There's
officially,
some-
oops, I didn't officially call a recess. Yeah, do we want to, okay, we're gonna take a recess, just a little. Oh,
Good
okay.
decision.
It's officially recessed.
Everybody's.
I just want to make sure Robert's still there. Perfect, thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Okay, I see you waving. So we went to the playground and had recess, but now we're back. And we have a presentation from Principal Broadhurst from Santa Cruz Gardens. Welcome.
Okay, good evening, Board of Trustees and District Office staff. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to present on SAGE program, Santa Cruz Gardens. And if I inadvertently say New Brighton Middle School.
Yeah.
Because I catch myself on the phone almost every time saying this is great from almost NBMS and SCG. And I also wanted to say to first-time trustees and returning trustees, thanks for your service. I probably attended my first board meeting when I was 25 in 1988, and now I'm 60. I don't know where the time is gone. And I really appreciate your service. And tonight, I'm going to present, as I said, on the Science and Gardening Emphasis Program, otherwise known by the acronym SAGE at Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary. And so many things that I want to say, but I want to remember to invite you all up at any time you'd like to be there. Of course, Amanda, you're a parent, you're probably on the site more than most. But we did have Ted today, and I know that most of you have been to Santa Cruz Gardens at some point in your tenure. But to be in the classrooms as Ted was today and seeing discussions about science concepts and water conservation, it really makes you feel great about the future, because we have a lot of students who have great skills, great collaboration, they're interested in learning, and I always think the future is bright. And when we look at our students. So without further ado, I am going to begin the presentation because I believe I only have an hour, is that correct?
An hour and a half.
Can we get to 15 minutes? Sorry. Anyway, so I'll jump in. All right, so SAGE, it came out of some meetings, I believe, before my time. I was at New Brighton at the time. In 2021, there were some meetings around enrollment at Santa Cruz Gardens, because that was a concern. And through a series of meetings, there came an idea of kind of a rebranding or an emphasis on a certain theme. And Life Lab, environmental literacy, and gardening were subjects that we discussed, as my understanding. And out of that came this idea of a science and gardening emphasis. And the idea being that science instruction can be used to develop the skills and competence for lifelong achievement, and preparing students to make a positive contribution to our world by connecting them to it. And I think that in some of the activities I'll talk about this evening, you'll see how students are connecting with science, connecting with nature through integration via language arts, via math. And that was the sort of the foundation of the history of SAGE in a very brief nutshell. So I'd like to go over what SAGE actually looks like in classrooms and at the site. And I believe in 2020, in May of 2020, there was FOSS kits that were ordered, sort of a recommitment to use FOSS kits as a way of engaging students in learning about science. And we've had FOSS kits in some form for a long time, because I remember when I was a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teacher using those same kits, but there was I believe, a renewed commitment. Maybe Jessica, I think you were instrumental in that.
It was an adoption committee. Carlo and I and a number of teachers were involved in that process of going through many curriculums, and this is the one that we landed on.
Yeah, so the FOSS kits are being used for the students to experience more science phenomena. Yes, we still have textbooks, but the actual getting your hands dirty, building things, taking things apart, examining things is a great way for students to learn. And I believe in the beginning that teachers were committed to do one of the units, and they're adding more units from the FOSS kids each year. And I know I don't have them all, but the FOSS kids are looking at subjects such as solids and liquids, insects and plants, earth and sun, materials, motions, and tides, weather. One of my favorites in the kinder is animals 2 by 2. I haven't looked into it yet, but I was like, okay, that's interesting. That box. The soil rocks and landforms, structures of life, art and weather, environments, energy. They're told, I don't really deal. So the FOSS kits are a great way. I know I use them as a teacher, a great way to get students engaged in science and experiencing the phenomena of science. The living classroom, which Ted also visited today, that's a classroom that is run by Jay Giota. He's one of our teachers, and all the students in the school, TK through 5th grade, go to the living classroom at least once a week. Upper grades go twice a week. And in the living classroom, you can see some photographs there. There's the top right is Jay talking with a group of students. They are currently 5th graders, but I don't know if they were 5th graders when that photograph was taken. Now, all students are getting that life and earth science experience. It's aligned with next generation science standards. Students are working in the 5 E's of engaging, exploring, explaining, elaborating, and evaluating. Students are encouraged to construct understanding of scientific concepts. And some of the topics that they're looking at when Scott and I were in there were, do you remember what they were, Scott?
Let's see, they were, I don't remember, you caught me off.
That's okay, we both got caught.
I did, last time we were talking about, that's right, gastropods.
Gastropods. They're looking at the food waste stream, they're looking at fungi, bacteria, and invertebrates in decomposition and composting, and looking at ecosystems. And this is a really popular class. Both Scott and Ted were in when I think it was kindergarten students were going in there and getting going. And the other thing that I noticed that Jade does also is a lot of nature journaling, a lot of gardening, a lot of tastings of things that are grown in the garden. They talk about recently talking about a plant tea, which is made from basically worm castings and water, and also human tea made out of a lemon balm and hot water. And just a great environment for students to be in and learn about science and nature and gardening, composting, ecosystems. The other bullet on this slide is the sage garden, which was the first phase was completed at the end of the 21-22 school year. It was done by Brian Boyce and his 5th grade students. In the bottom right, you can see in the middle photograph of the bottom right, that's about the 4,000 square foot area that was not very well utilized. I mean, I was at Santa Cruz Gardens for 10 years, and it was nice, but now it's a garden where students can sit, they can nature journal. On a rainy day, when you walk by there, you can smell all the fragrances of the different plants that are growing there. And it's just been a really remarkable transformation of that area that 5th grade students sort of collaborated on. They did the math, they did the research, they did the reading, they did the writing. It's a true example of project-based learning. And it's being further built on, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. In the kinder area, we have some raised beds, and this year, PK and K students are reviving those beds by weeding them and clearing them. They're amending the soil and planting, a student-built worm bin has been placed in that kinder bed. And in the not too distant future, the TK and K students will be learning about composting by actually doing it.
Mhm.
And so talking about a project-based learning and bringing learning to life and connecting to our environment. I'm really excited to talk about one of the most recent developments, and this is the Poetry Trail. And this is an idea, a project that Melissa Provancha took on with her second grade students. And along the pathway of the Sage Garden, you can see one of our students, the post hole digger there. He was helping dig post holes, and they've got 2x4s in the ground. And there's about 6, I believe, 2x4s in the ground along the trail of the Sage Garden.
Mhm.
And Melissa is turning that into a poetry trail. So think about a house for sale with a leaflet in the box outside. And the leaflet's got a little lid on top and a see-through goes back to front. Students in Miss Provancha's class are going to be writing poetry and putting that in that poetry wall, poetry trail, so that students can go through the poetry trail, read the poems. There's going to be cards where they can write a reflection or how they connect, or maybe just a thank you for the poem, so the authors can get some kudos for their work. And Miss Provancha told me there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of research, revision, and presentation of the students to get the poetry trail up and running. And currently, she says there's going to be 6 themes that are going to be reflected in the poems: community, emotion, learning, growing, friendship, and the Santa Cruz Garden Way, which is about being responsible, safe, and kind. There's even going to be a little QR code at the bottom of the poem, so that those who wanted to could scan that and listen to the author reading the poem. And so just a great addition and part of it's part of the Sage program. Actually the grand opening is going to be on 2/21, which is next Tuesday, and I'm not exactly sure what time, but I'll make sure I send out an invite so we can get if you're available and you want to come and see the grand opening of that. I think that's just going to be an awesome celebration. It's my understanding too that although Miss Provancha's class has put this together, there'll be also the ability for guest poets to put their work in there too, or in the classrooms. And just a great celebration of science, language arts, reading, writing. Another area on site, which is behind the 30s wing, we have first and second grade students in Miss Ainaudi's and Miss Walker's class. And they're turning an area into what's called a drought-tolerant pollinator garden. Currently, it's not as well looked after as it should be, but it's going to be because the students in the classrooms are going to take this on. And so it'll be basically a new habitat for insects and birds. The students will be pruning and removing less desirable plants. They'll research and start seedlings for ideal plants. They'll do soil preparation. They'll be planting. They'll work on the signage. They'll work on the watering. And it'll also be a wonderful spot for nature journaling, which I'll talk about in a little moment. Not just yet, Jessica.
I'm just preparing.
So it'll be a great spot for attracting the pollinators in California and the ecosystem in this area. So beetles, birds, bees, moths, wasps, flies. But the idea is to make it drought tolerant, attract the insects, the wildlife that we need to pollinate. And just another example of sage inclusion learning for our students. I did mention the nature journaling. I know that before I got to Santa Cruz Gardens, there was some PD that was really well received. Was it John Muir, Jessica?
John Muir was.
came to staff and talked to the staff, given PD on nature journaling, and a lot of the staff have really embraced this and run with it. And I brought some samples of some 5th grade nature journaling work for you to peruse. And like a good teacher never gives out materials when they're giving the presentation, but I know that you can probably multitask and look at the nature journal and listen to the presentation at the same time. So in the nature journals, students will go out into the sage garden. You can see some students there on the top right. They're in the pathways, the trails. That was the word I was looking for. The trails that go behind our school into the Chaminade area. And I was actually in a classroom, Mr. Boyce's classroom, a few weeks back, and he had these wonderful examples of mushrooms that were growing on those trails. Not poisonous ones, and nobody ate any, but they were just beautiful. And students get a chance to look at those, they learn about them, and they nature journal on them. Some of the topics that teachers are having students work on in their nature journals are exploring weather changes, looking at gardens, looking at native plants, looking at edible and medicinal plants, using the 5 senses, and also engaging them in how they observe and how they can show curiosity, creativity, and students through their nature journaling, they're growing their artistic talents. They're also enhancing their reading and their writing skills. And I was looked at those and I thought, wow, what a great activity, what a great way to learn. And just the sense of pride that a student would have in their nature journal. And you've seen in some of the slides earlier, students out in nature journaling. Bottom left is Mr. Boyce on one of the trails, nature journaling. Top right is nature journaling. Just that map, let's draw a map on the bottom right. That's the sage garden, some of the planning that went into it and the collaboration of students. So just another example of stage and student learning. The green team is something that has happened in the past under Carissa's watch. It's kind of been on the back burner a little bit, but thanks to Carlo and his efforts with Stu Robinson and student leadership, the green team is set to be up and running in the next week or so, correct?
Right.
We'll have upper grade students, although there are some lower grade students who are asking me today, how did they get on the green team? And green team is basically some students who have been trained in helping clean the campus with gloves and pincers, also recycling and trying to make sure that we're not putting a lot of food waste into the food waste stream. And also working in tandem with CNS and Cindy, who's our CNS person up at Santa Cruz Gardens, about reducing the amount of food waste. Can we use that in composting? How can we utilize it so that we're not putting so much food waste into the system? There's also going to be, as part of the green team, the compost captains, who are going to be helping with getting food waste into the right containers. One of the problems we had at New Brighton is a lot of food waste ended up in wrong containers. So I think it would be helpful to New Brighton if we have students coming up from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders who are already used to putting waste in a correct receptacle. And it should make life over there a little bit easier at lunchtime with the food waste. But really excited to get the green team going. It's again, I'll give kudos to Carlos and Sue Robinson for taking the lead on getting the student leadership going, and the green team is going to be making great contributions again in the non-too-distant future. The invention convention is something that I know that Main Street has been participating in. And so this year I was talking to the upper grade teachers, and they're going to dip their toes in that invention convention pool. And the idea is there's going to be some individual projects, there'll be some collaborative projects, and through that sage lens of science, engineering, and nature, students are going to be looking for ways to support the health and species diversity of the environment up at Santa Cruz Gardens. And an example of what that could look like is the stage garden that I talked about earlier is going to get a drip system, and students are going to collaborate. The two fifth grade classes, the 4, 5, and the fifth grade class, they'll be collaborating and researching water usage. In fact, that's what we were in the classroom today when they were talking about water usage. I think that's where that is going. And so the fifth grade students will be collaborating and designing a drip system, so that currently they've been going out there taking turns and watering the old fashioned way with a hose and standing there, which is it's a worthwhile activity, but it also wastes water. And so I'm really excited to see how this will come into play, because Brian is really passionate about stage, and with his facilitation, the students came up with that sage garden. He's going to add a drip system with student collaboration. There's also some putting or small fencing that needs to be done to stop the wood chips going down into the concrete walkway. So there'll be some convention participation tied into sage, and I'm really happy that we can support that too. How am I doing on time, Jessica?
You're super over.
Okay, I'm almost. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the future. Mentioned that the PD happened already. Now, not everybody had that PD. So again, I'll give kudos to Brian Boyce. He said, I'm willing to take that on. I'll lead a staff PD on nature journaling because I know how to do it. And so we're going to make sure all our staff are trained with nature journaling. We were having a staff meeting earlier on in the year, and we were talking about what SAGE means to us as a staff side, what it means to individual teachers. What do we want to see in the future? And future projects, we'd like to see an orchard there, like a fruit orchard somewhere, where future students will benefit from the fruits, be a place to sit under and read a book or write or nature journal. And so that's one thing that we want to explore in the future. Could we get a small orchard on our site? Another idea is, what about if you went to a farmer's market and you saw a Santa Cruz Gardens table with students there, with leaflets, brochures about the SAGE program, about the school, maybe selling some of the products, not necessarily trying to make a profit, but be a presence. And I was thinking, wow, if I was a parent going to a farmer's market, I'm already interested in organic, local produce. Wait, there's a school that's doing this and bringing it to farmers market too. I thought that'd be a great, a great learning experience for students, and also a great marketing tool for the program and for the district. And so I'd like to finish by saying, our staff, students, our families, and the district, you all have embraced the SAGE program in one way or another. And it's that commitment that's going to help it sustain and grow and just go from strength to strength. So I just want you to keep that in the forefront of your mind, that we all are committed. I'm actually really impressed by the Santa Cruz Garden staff and how they have embraced this idea of science and gardening emphasis, and they want to grow it and keep it strong so that students can learn in engaging ways. So that is the presentation. I have no idea how long it took, maybe 20 minutes.
Ish.
About. It's great.
Yeah, it's so if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them to the best of my ability.
Yeah, sure. Do you ever, or is there any planning of field trips orchards or nurseries?
That is part of the overall plan. I was looking back in the plans that Carissa came up with in her use. Yeah, definitely. I can't off the top of my head think of the ones that they, somebody went to the Museum of Art and History today, but that's, like a beach cleanup, field trips and nurseries. I know when I was I think a fourth grade teacher that I took my students out to Davenport Sawmill or, and past there. So there's plenty of opportunities for field trips. There's also there's been quite a few grants that have been written to get monies to help support this. Like I wrote one to not San Lorenzo Lumber,
Outdoor.
Big Creek.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they said they had so many applicants. I wasn't one that was selected, but we were looking for some material so we could. I talked about the sage garden. Where the sage garden ends, it needs a little bit of a border to stop wood chips going. I was going, okay, if I can get this money, we can do that. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So yeah, field trips and community partnerships is something that is being looked at and part of the plan too.
Can I just add to that? And I know Carlo and I were on the originating planning team. It seems like it was like forever ago now. But one of the goals was for each year that the children are in school, for there to be specific focus areas and also specific trips. So if you were in third grade, you were going to go on this trip. And if you were in second grade, you were looking forward to going on that trip, and it all tied into what curriculum was being planned during the course of that year. So I think that that's, something that with COVID, some of those experiences outside of a school were limited, but now, back on track, that's definitely the way it was planned.
That's a really good point, because COVID kind of derailed it, I think, but teachers still kept going with what they could do at the site. And like, again, that I'm really impressed by the commitment that teachers have to this. They really want this to go from strength to strength and develop it. And so it is like a flagship part of the school and something that draws people in. And as I said earlier, I'd love to see you on campus in classrooms or in outdoor areas where SAGE is happening.
So on the field trip, Jessica, you have a new friend over at Cabrillo. They have a great horticulture department up there.
I know, it's so true.
That's close.
We can go anywhere.
And SoCal High has an agricultural program too. And so
Which leads to my next question is, could this program be moved up to New Brighton? I mean, if we're gonna have Santa Cruz Gardens students going to New Brighton anyhow, they could be like, the founders.
I don't think there's any reason why it couldn't. Obviously, there's science going on at New Brighton Middle School. And it would just take a decision from the site or from the district, or a discussion like how can we keep this going? We have these students coming in with all these skills already. How can we keep this going? So that then those students who really want to run with it can maybe specialize in high school and then on to Cabrillo.
Right. So a pathway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a couple more. One is, what's the plans for the summer? So at the elementary school gardens that I did with my kid, everything died in the summer. So could we have a summer camp, SAGE summer camp?
We can have anything. Well, I mean, what I say is like, there's no no's, but what I would say is, we're continuing always to like embrace our summer programming to include more and more hands-on activities, and the ELOP programming funding sources really allow for that, for us to be really creative with that. So our summer ELOP program planning committee can talk about like the vastness of opportunity, certainly.
And that's one of the reasons that the fifth graders are going to be working on the drip system, because last year It survived because I think Brian was probably coming in, maybe some parent volunteers were coming in.
Right.
There's garden work days.
Yeah.
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 But
We
with
had a
the-
great gardening schedule over the summer. Actually, my kids and I did. It was great. It was like, yeah, it was really
You
sweet.
know, with the drip system, which should be in by the end of school this year, they won't need to be watered in the way that they were, previously.
If you can, get the controller that has the app.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so the last one is, so this is project-based learning, and so when you have students, especially upper class students, this is a kinesthetic thing, so do you see students who open up in this style of learning rather than in the classroom style of learning?
Well, I could answer that better if I was actually the teacher in the classroom.
Right.
But I mean, it goes without saying to me, there's gonna be certain students who thrive in more hands-on
Right.
activities, and again, education should be about connecting people or finding places for them, or so students feel like they belong, and talking about equity and inclusion. Yeah, definitely, I mean.
Yeah.
There are certain
Mhm.
people who are more drawn towards gardening than others.
Well, yeah, there's people who do, I want to do it, then I'll learn it.
Yeah, so, yeah, definitely, so it's just been a great program from what I've observed of it. I mean, can you imagine the pride of seeing your poem in the poetry room
Yeah.
and people commenting on that? And you think about the motivation, I want to get my poem in the poem box. I know when I was a younger student, they had art on the walls in the corridors, we had indoor corridors, and I'm like, hey, what do I have to do to get one piece of my artwork? It's motivating.
Right.
So, there's a lot of engaged students. I mean, you saw in the Nature Journal, it's very engaging.
That's it for me.
And also ties in kind of the SEL learning about being outside and breathing and just focusing. So there's an SEL aspect to it also. Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
No, I'm just super impressed. I love what
Yeah.
you're doing, and I love Phil's comment about moving it to New Brighton and then possibly a high school and having a transition with those kids and have them kind of leading the way in each one. I think that's really smart.
Yeah, I definitely think that the teachers at the upper grade who have those fifth graders going on would love to see that happen. And we just need some collaboration between, the sites to get it up and running, but what a great idea, like, hey, I was kindergarten sage
Mhm.
through middle school into the ag program and horticultural program. If
Mhm.
some people want that pathway,
Mhm.
or some people would be drawn to that pathway.
I'll just comment that when the program first developed and started, even though I was a parent at the school, it was a little hard to visualize and understand where it was going. I so appreciated the intent and the plan, but like what you were saying about building and building and building, like here we are just a couple of years in and I'm seeing it, I think it's really incredible. And then hearing about, and then the second grade class now has this vision for the poetry trail. And now here we are talking about building pathways throughout the year. So it's that kind of constant reminder of you plant, oh, this is corny, but you plant the seeds, right? You have this program and then people are going to take ownership and it's going to continue evolving and growing. It's really,
I'm really
Cool to
excited
see.
to see the TKs and Ks working on the raised garden bed,
Yeah,
bending the
yeah.
soil, working on compost and getting their hands dirty,
mhm,
and then drawing about it and writing about it.
all integrated. It's
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
So everybody likes a winner and the
Yeah.
whole program.
Yeah. I think we've all said our piece. Did anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? All right, not in person. Any emails?
Nothing on email.
And Mr. Rodhurst, I could be wrong, but this might be your last presentation
This
here.
will be my last board presentation.
Board presentation.
Might not be my last board meeting, but it'll be
Yes.
definitely.
last
Well, we
board
could work on that.
I mean, if you want to sign up for any more, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you
Wow,
for your
Yeah,
many
Thank you.
informative presentations over the years.
Well,
and for your
appreciate
time
that.
with us.
Like I said before, thank you for your service. And It's appreciated.
We appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
And your staff.
Here's your journals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. Still, the staff.
Yeah.
really important. So I'm only here like as a conduit, really. I'm the bridge principal for you.
Mm.
But the staff have really embraced it.
Mhm.
And I think it would mean a lot to them to see you up there and being involved in that. They really like that because they're really proud of what they're doing.
Mhm.
And
Well, it's
what's happening with it.
It's a good idea because it's lasting, you know,
Mhm.
and there's people jumping in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you.
I apologize. My payment was.
Oh, no, you never have to apologize. and I'm very sorry. Oh,
Got a cast on.
yeah, no,
Thank you
we
for being here.
so completely understand. Feel better. Forgot she was on the scooter. And Mr. Rogers, we have your nature journals whenever, just so you know,
Thank you.
they're up here, but whenever you want to grab them, please feel free.
I just want to know what's coming next.
Oh, LCAP bites.
I have
All right.
to go there for an ELAC meeting.
Oh, no,
All right, I can fill you in if you want.
Okay.
yeah, we can understand. Thank you.
You probably already know.
All right, so on 9C, our first LCAP bite.
Okay, well, thank you, Board of Trustees. I have actually 2 LCAP bites today because I missed our last meeting, so thank you for indulging me. The first LCAP bite tonight is in alignment with Goal 2, which is through the use of data to identify research-based classroom differentiation, professional development, and systemic, equitable, inclusive, and culturally responsive supports needed to close the predictable achievement gaps. We will be talking about school counseling. And we are very fortunate. We're very counseling rich in our district today. Probably to a level that I would have never thought we could have happen. But I do really kind of want to talk about number 1, the people, and then 2, what they do. So we do have Brian Koch, who's actually been with our district for quite a long time, and he acts as a school social worker, but he is also our counseling coordinator. And so that is a really unique position. Not a lot of districts have that person. Originally that job was instated because we had so many interns, but not full-time counselors. And so now he has the opportunity to work with our site counselors and our site interns. And so the work that he's doing while he's housed at the annex at New Brighton really kind of proliferates to the work that's happening all across the district and into the elementary schools. We were able to access a great resource though in New Brighton with Vanessa Eaton, who is our new counselor there. And one thing that I can say about Vanessa in particular is that, you know, middle school is a really interesting time in a child's development, and even more so now post-COVID. And she has made such a conscientious effort to not just be the counselor for New Brighton, but meeting each of the students every quarter is her goal. And so when you're looking at how many students are on that campus and how to access and talk to each one of those students so that they feel that there's an adult that's connecting to them on purpose, it's really a unique condition for that site. And so we're really excited to have her there. And she brings a lot of really great expertise to our family communities there as well. We do at SoCal have Jessica Hassani, and she is a parent in our district, but she's also one of our school social workers, and really has developed a nice rapport on that site with the staff and the families there, and is such a good coordinator of efforts with Crystal, who is our new, and I can't remember her title.
Oh, she's the counseling, not counseling, I'm sorry, community organizer.
Yes, and
Or
so
Cradle to Career.
and just having those 2 adults on campus coordinating their efforts, and then including Sasha, who is the comm room supervisor, really kind of working in an integrated way to support students, has been such a great thing for our SoCal elementary school students. We have Sue Robinson, who is at Santa Cruz Gardens, and Sue, it's not her first year with us, just like it's not Jessica's first year with us, but really has found a wonderful way to connect with students at Santa Cruz Gardens. I was recently in her her room, looking at her library of books and offerings that she has for students. And I said, oh my gosh, the vastness of your library that you have to offer students is so fantastic. Can I take a look at some of your books? Finding out that she had purchased these books on her own. And so really for us to like do that mental check, like we really need to be providing our school counselors with these kind of curricular resources that they're using. So it was a really good touch point for us. She's doing a great job. Just joining us this year is Amelia. She's working at Main Street Elementary. Talk about such a great addition to the team. She's very grounded. In a recent conversation that we were having with our counseling group, she was really talking about some of the things that she's seeing emerge in conversations with kids, and how to not make a child feel like they are to blame for something that's happening in their family environment, right? And that there isn't judgment and there's just care that exists in that space. And she just articulated it really well. It connected to me really deeply. But their work is not just, you know, seeing a student that comes to visit them. Their work is not just being on the yard, you know, observing many students, but they're handling many types of referrals. So they're getting teacher referrals, parent referrals, 504 referrals, IEP touchpoint referrals, MBIT referrals, and all of those kinds of things, and trying to like manage that and mitigate that and prioritize those students. But also they're pushing into classrooms and they're doing lessons. They are doing small group counseling with changing families, with grief, all kinds of different things that are happening in our kids' lives, and they're there to participate in it. And then they're always part of our COST teams, which are our coordinated services teams, which, you know, the topic of discussion could be academic in nature, it could be absenteeism in nature, it could be in many other things. And so, you know, I can't say enough about them. They're all wonderful individuals, you know, independent of their work, but really are the right people to do the work for us. And I'm so glad that they're here. So I know it's just like a bite of information, but those resources allocated through our LCAP last year to be able to say, this is what we want for our students, and this is what we want for our families right now, I think has been, I mean, we make good uses of our funding no matter what we're doing, but this to me has been one of the most influential in kind of rebuilding our community together post-COVID specifically. I wish that, you know, we could keep all of them forever. They're very talented. And so my goal always is to advocate for the continuation of, you know, counseling services, but these individuals in particular have been really outstanding. Any questions?
I'm just so thrilled that all the school sites have a counselor. It's just so wonderful. I'm just so happy that we can do that. And I just wanted to understand the interns. So New Brighton has interns, but the elementary school sites don't use interns. Is it?
We have 2 interns in our district, and while Mr. Koch oversees them, that's where he's located. But our interns really are to kind of expand their knowledge base, not just at the middle school, but at the elementary as well. So we're fortunate to have 2. You know, that gives us the opportunity to train from within, but also to have more adult hands and eyes on students. I would say in years past, when we only had interns and we had a supervisor, we still had really great service, but we have now fully trained people working in coordination with our interns, and then obviously their coordinator. And like I said before, I mean, I just hope that they all want to stay with us. Right now, that team works so well together. You know, their energy is really good. Their commitment to advocacy is very good. So helpful.
Yeah.
Do we still have the response team? Remember we created that group that would be able to go
The
to
crisis
any site?
response
Yeah.
team, still have crisis response teams. We
Okay.
still have, you know, part of a counselor's work, you know, is the group work and the classroom work. But we do have crisis that happen in our community. And so we have a crisis response team. We have suicide prevention protocols. We have all kinds of other things that we're doing. We have touch points to outside agencies. All of our school counselors are social workers, and so they have access to shelters, they have access to food resources, they have access to legal, resources. And so they are really kind of a hub of so many things that happen on a school site, and really can connect our families to so many other things that they might not even know that they need.
Great.
Other board questions?
I'm just was thinking, that what I just am so happy that we have these counselors, and, do we keep track of like data to like really show their effectiveness and how wonderful and all the good work they're doing? Like, is that something that we're doing so that we can kind of,
Yeah.
we gotta keep them. We have the evidence, like, are we maintaining?
Yeah, I mean,
evidence?
we collect a lot of different kinds of evidence
Yeah.
and data. I'll give you a couple examples. One, Brian Koch in particular is a great data collector. He collects data on like how many students we're seeing, what kinds of things we're seeing them about, lots of different kinds of like hard data like that. We also keep records, like what are we talking about when we see them? Obviously, that's not public information, but that's anecdotal information, right? We can see thematic information with that. And then also we have information that we're collecting with students about how they feel at school in lots of different ways, like through the California Healthy Kids Survey. We can tell that through like some of our behavior referrals. Like there's lots of different ways that we can see if there are changes influenced by some of the things that are happening at a school site in support of students. It's not far reaching. Our district is small. We can say like, these are the number of students that we're seeing, and this is what we're seeing as an outcome.
Yeah.
And I think what I can honestly say is the more you have available to students, the more they're going to access it. So your numbers do like swing, right? Like, does it mean that more kids need support now, or is there more support available so kids are actually accessing it and seeking it differently? So you do see some swings in data like that. I would say we have enough data to support that we have counselors at our sites.
So do other districts in our county have staff, counselor staff at each of their sites?
I couldn't say, honestly. I know that every school district makes choices during their LCAP processes, just like we do. If it's something that's important at that time in that district, then they do. Every district is different, and
Right.
I don't know.
So I'm wondering if it's something that we should announce, like with a press release or something of what we have.
We certainly should, make a note of it and make people aware of it, because, ever since I've been here, in any kind of survey, even an informal kind of conversation, what always rose to the top was we need more counselors.
Right.
Because
Right.
you remember 7 years ago, we really didn't have a counselor, we had one counselor in the district.
Right.
And so we didn't have a counseling team, it's all the interns. So the data supports it in terms of what the community wants, what the staff wants. I would also just add the universal screener, having full
yeah.
implementation with that, and knowing all the needs that are out there and how the counseling team responds to that. Yeah, there's no dearth of data. We just have to keep making sure that we identify the right funding sources going on, because, this team has been really mindful about being flexible, finding every funding source that we can put towards that. But of course, unfortunately, some of those funding sources are one-time in nature, so we'll keep being as creative as possible to maintain it.
Well, parents in our county are discerning, and they look for stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to let them know what's available.
Absolutely.
I'd like to give it here on behalf of our teachers that we're very, very thankful to have such amazing counselors at each of our site, and we have a very powerful care frame. And it is unique in our capacity building. We're a small district, so we have the ability to, through behavior inclusion team, through counseling, through teachers, through our process agencies, we have this opportunity in this flow framework to allow teachers to work hand in hand with counselors, with administration, with families, to build these frameworks of rapport. But I think we know that is the most important piece to our kids, is these relationships, especially kids that are in trauma. And I think, just again, a kudos that we are in this period of time coming out of COVID. We're healing, we're trying to get back to this sense of normalcy. And we have these care frameworks that hopefully in this, thankfully we have these counselors coming again next year. We can continue to build capacity around inclusive practices for tier 1 and tier 2, and then going into tier 3, but primarily in those tier 1, tier 2 realms, how are we involving our teachers and our other students, all of our resources to build these care frameworks for kids in need, but also considering that there's a myth of normal. Trauma is effervescent in our society right now, and we need to kind of really start normalizing the fact that we continue to have counselors not being able to see certain students because we have family members that have a stigma towards what counseling is, and that's something that Brian and counselors are working towards continuing to give out information and understanding around what school counseling is. It's not what people might think it is. So how we continue to build capacity in the second year, I think is going to continue to be more and more powerful and healing and very
Well, and I will say, having a discussion about what school counseling is and isn't is better than having a discussion as well. We don't have it at all.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Amazing progress. Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you. For any other comments from our gentleman sticking it out with us?
Actually, I was gonna leave right now.
Okay, got you. And I can't tell if Robert wants to talk. I think he's just leaning in and listening, but you good?
No, I'll say.
You're good. Okay, got you.
Yeah, really, I just echo the board statements. I mean, it's so cool. I think we're all in a really good space.
Perfect, thank you. Do we
Nothing
have
on
no
email.
email comments, but thank you for checking. All right, well, thank you for that bite. That was awesome, and obviously we're all excited.
Okay.
Yeah, are you
I'll
ready
take
for your next one?
So thank you again for kind of continuing the conversation in support of our LCAP. We do have our second item up tonight, and it's in alignment with goal 1. All students receive equitable, inclusive, culturally responsive, and rigorous high-quality classroom instruction with standard-based curriculum that promotes life, college, and or career readiness. With a spotlight tonight on 1.5, and that is leveled literacy. And leveled literacy is actually, it is a term that's used, I think, pretty commonly. This, for our district, it is used specifically for what is titled LLI. So it's leveled literacy intervention. It's created by Fountas and Pinnell. It's a research-based reading foundational program that moves up in colors. So I don't know if any of you remember back in the olden days, there was something called SRA, and you would read a card and you'd answer questions and there would be a color, and then you could move to the next color if you did well enough. This isn't exactly like that. This is very much teacher oriented and student supported. And it's developed for not each student to do alone, but for a teacher to do with a small group of students who need significant short-term intervention to build specific skills and then move them out. At about the 2019-2020 timeframe, we had LLI that was purchased for one school for one specific reason. And that school was really trying to find a way of taking a look at their English learners to build some literacy support. LLI was invented for the creation of the experience of improving your skills in language in English, but it wasn't necessarily developed for English learners only. And so as we started to kind of expand our knowledge of what LLI could offer, what we could see was it is a K-5+ program. It can be used with small groups of students in any level of reading and or comprehension skill through all of those grades, and can be kind of a short-term intervention in a classroom or in a small group environment like an ELD group, or a special education classroom, like a resource group. And so what we did over the course of 3 years is we kind of kept putting money aside to say, like, this is something that we're continuing to see making progress with students. And so now you can find it at every school site across our district. You can see every kit from K to 5+, and it is now at the middle school as well, because we do have students at the middle school who are not reading at the 8th, 7th, or 6th grade level. And so we have its use at the middle school expanded to the resource classroom and the ELD classroom. And so the reason I mention it tonight is because there is a specific requirement of the state of California for us to say we have a universal curriculum that addresses the need of students who have not yet met their target in reading and writing, and specifically curriculum that is used for English language development for students whose first language is not English. And so it really did kind of start in one space, but capture many spaces of need for us. As we continue the conversation of reading foundations, and I talked about that earlier in my update, one of our work groups will be talking about reading foundations. That will be different. That is not meant to be a reading intervention. That's meant to be a baseline reading foundation support for all students across our district. This is not intended for that. Any questions about that?
So this is going way back, but at one time wasn't the leveled reading controversial because of I think it was limiting because the monitoring needed wasn't there. The time to monitor students was there, and so somebody could get stuck in a level for too long.
Well, I mean, so a couple things. One is, and what I was kind of saying at the beginning of the conversation is like, leveled literacy is a very broad term, right? So when I'm talking about leveled literacy intervention as like the title of a curriculum that we're using, like that, it's very specific to that. I think what you're talking about is what used to be in the olden days of like, we're going to level all of our books and then you pick one and until you do that one well, you can't move to the next one, right? But there wasn't really a way of navigating like progress necessarily. This particular curriculum, it is built in for the teacher to be able to monitor the progress. We still have leveled libraries across our district. That's just what we have. And we have it for a reason. We don't want kids to struggle too much. We don't want them to feel like it's too easy. So there's absolute purpose, but every teacher has a way of understanding what their students' like skill level is using some of our universal tools. Like we have an F&P assessment that we give to students at every like grading period. Like there's lots of ways that we mitigate that are separate from this intervention curriculum.
So there's a circling back thing that happens then because so that you're not stuck there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you're not. If you are, then we're going to probably put you in this curriculum, right? So we can help move you forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? I will just give my continued appreciation again for the, I think I say it every meeting, but these bites make it so much easier to really, when we get that whole LCAP in June, and that's in the docket, having the familiarity with these concepts and the work that we're doing just puts it all into context. So appreciation.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from the audience? No. Any emails?
Nothing on email.
Okay. Thank you so much. Next item is our LCAP Collaborative Community Forum reflection.
Well, it's already been mentioned several times tonight, but this is the item where we'll focus on it. A week ago tonight, we had our community forum. And so I welcome the board to offer some reflections. I'll offer a few of mine first, but number one is gratitude for the community coming out for it. Gratitude for every single administrator and others in the district for making it happen, as has been said earlier. Takes a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of planning behind the scenes to make it all come out smoothly. I'd also just think, I think it's really cool that it came out of an idea, I think about 8 years ago before I got here. Like we want a forum that's just completely transparent where community can engage and talk about what's going on in the district. And it felt like that was accomplished on that night. So it's nice when something has a hold and it doesn't fade away over time. I'd also just say that the band was great. That's always a highlight. And that the roundtables were superb. I so appreciate everybody, all, the administrators that led that. Besides the awesome kitchen tour, which is always the highlight. It was also fun to talk about teaching and learning and everything else that is going on in the district. And just, it's totally open, it's the parents can ask anything they want. And I'm really proud of the fact that the conversation happens and there's no offense or anything taken to any question. And this just completely open and transparent. The feedback that we got was good. We figured we had about 50 people that came all together, and we look at the sign out sheets or the sign in sheets and maybe factor in some that might not have signed. And then of course some of the parents did leave after the band left, and we expected that, but we got 16 evaluations in. We asked some real simple questions. The first question is, did you think the night was informative? Was the event informative? And everybody either agreed or strongly agreed. So nobody disagreed with that statement. And we got some great anecdotal feedback. Mainly it was like, we want more breakout sessions. So next time I'm going to talk less and add another breakout session. So that's the message that I got out of it. So I welcome your thoughts about it.
All right, thank you. Team? Or should I start? I always feel like I ask everyone else. Yeah, I think it was a great turnout. So thank you for all the work you did to get folks to attend, and for the board and Robert for your, we all had some great ideas on how to market it to the community. So we had a really great turnout. I think for me, my biggest reflection was in sitting in the breakout tables, hearing parents really opening up and being vulnerable and clear with their needs and their questions. And that's not always easy to do. And that's probably not always easy to do with, an administrator in the district office or your school's principal or however they might be connected to the person leading the table. So I think that demonstrates, some trust in being able to be vulnerable and clear with your needs, and then really hearing the way that our staff responded to people's concerns, questions, kudos, all of it. Again, it just, it makes me so proud of the work that we're doing here, and so grateful for the time that everyone took to prepare for, and also, be agile and really respond to things on the spot. That's what people need and people want. So more gratitude for me. Yeah.
Well, I have a few things. So the band, yay, Mr. Stewart, and they played a CTA song, which they are not easy to play. So that was great. And Scott, hats off to you for that exercise at the beginning. If you did this, stand up. If you did that, stand up. And probably 90% of the parents there were standing up. And so you got the influencers to come, and they're going to go out and they're going to share what they saw and learned. So that's great. Thanks for having translators, lots of translators around, because they were needed. And so I think that made people much more comfortable. And for me, we have staff in our meetings every time we have a meeting, but this is where I can go and watch staff working, because they're like talking to the parents. So they're in their work mode, and that's a different thing going on than here. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I was very grateful for the translators. I thought that it was just so great hearing, some of the families that only spoke Spanish, and then the translation, really being able to connect with them, because and just hear their thoughts. I did hear from maybe just, I don't know, two parents, just a Spanish speaking parent, just that reaching out to that group, maybe in a more like hands-on way. Her idea was like, in the parking line when the parents are coming in, and like just really trying to put it in plain language of why someone should go to that. I thought was a great idea. Yeah, and I learned a lot, and it was great to just see the district people and the administrator kind of sharing. I liked the rotations. I thought it was great.
And childcare sold out.
Yeah, and the band was really great too. It was awesome.
So let's do it next year.
Let's do it again.
And Robert, it was very impressive. You were there with your crutches,
Yeah.
so.
No, all the kudos go to the staff and everybody that set this up. I do think as long as I think you hit it right on the head, Scott. You know, a little less of us and more of those, that round table I thought was critical. You know, I mean, the engagement that provided. And I noticed everybody's talking about the translators. I mean, that was just, you know, so smart ahead of time to be prepared and anticipate that and really get that nailed down. Cause I think that was a big part of what we were talking about and what we brought back from the CSBA conferences about making everybody feel comfortable and doing everything we can to keep, you know, every segment engaged. And I think that was it was just really intelligent. It was smart work.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is an idea that just came to me, just a little thought bubble, but
Mhm.
I think the state of the district part is really important. It's important for people to hear that, but if the idea is, well, maybe a little less of that and more of the roundtables, you know, maybe there's a way to like pre-record a little video message or something and include that
Yeah.
in all of the outreach.
Great
So
idea.
people, you know, because as a parent in city schools, you know, they do some video updates and it's nice to be able to click the link and watch it at your leisure. So
Great idea.
just an idea, but
Great idea.
yeah, nice to be able to reach so many people. So
Were
yeah.
there any
Yeah.
Spain families?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't hear any
Yeah.
at my roundtables, but
Yeah.
they might not have identified themselves. Yeah,
Something that, you know, a family may want to look at too.
that's a good idea.
Recording.
And the survey, do we have numbers on how many of that?
We're over 250 for parent surveys. Last time I checked, 254. It may be higher. I haven't checked in a few days.
And then don't we do, and teacher surveys, didn't that go out?
We're
too?
we're close to 60, I think. It's not just teachers and staff.
Teachers and staff, yeah. Great.
And students will be going out after that.
So that's about a third right there.
Yeah.
If she can get 10%, that's a number.
Yeah.
That's great. Is that kind of usually what we do, a third? Yeah, great.
Board had our questions. I don't think we have any in-person questions. No audience at the moment. And we're all set here, right? Yeah. Any emails on the topic?
Nothing on email.
Losing my words. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Scott, again for the event and then the chance to reflect. Next up, we have a discussion for board bylaw 9323.
Okay, so this is on meeting conduct. It's a first reading, so take your input and take it from there. The purpose of California School Boards Association recommending an update on this is, as you saw in the memo, a new law and which authorized the board president to remove an individual for disrupting a board meeting and establishes a procedure for warning the individual prior to their removal and better defines disrupting and true threat of force. So of course, this is something we hope we never have to use, but it's important to have, you know, just in case the situation does arise and provide a little bit more clarity. I'll go to a few of the changes. So if you go to the actual policy, you'll see new language in bold and italics. And it does make an adjustment there in the third paragraph. Just kind of a wordsmithing on that one, if necessary, may subsequently be adjourned to a later date. That one really is just kind of wordsmithing. Going down under public participation, you'll see some additional language, and that really does just kind of, if you remember, if you were on the board, if you were watching the board when we first dipped our toes into the virtual world, we actually just did it on a Zoom because we were trying to figure it out and build the plane as we flew. And so if, you know, if it's on something like Zoom, a person may have to sign into Zoom to get into the meeting, right? It's just kind of putting that caveat out there. So that's kind of just a technicality. The meat of the changes really come down on page 3 of 5 of the board policy, which is page 104 of the docket, and where it gets into really kind of spelling out a little bit more about the disruptive behavior that might be able to be addressed. And I did notice after the fact, a couple of typos, I'm so sorry, on the third line. So if you go to page 3 of 5 of the draft policy, page 104 of the board docket, and you see the paragraph that starts off in bold and italicized,
Mhm.
the end of the third line, there's a hanging number 259.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't know how I didn't catch that. Or didn't
that's
get
ed
caught,
code.
but-
That's an ed code number.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I could fake it and try to say. Don't make me go 260.
I'm used to all this education stuff. I did that right away.
Yeah.
I must have been working on that at a time where my brain wasn't functioning and I, instead of hitting Control V, I hit 259. I don't know how. We will fix that.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I mean, this policy already existed in a way to give the board and the board president authority to maintain order. This board policy change or update just kind of better defines that. And forever in that unfortunate situation really just kind of spells out. I like the idea of, and I think we've, had to use some form of this, not nearly in this kind of disruptive situation of calling a recess, kind of, so I'll take a breath, see if we can come back and be in sync better as a whole community, rather than just immediately, resorting to throwing somebody out. Any questions about this update?
I just wanted to understand the adjourning the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So is it that we try to leave by 10 or that we do leave by 10 or what does that mean?
Where is that?
That's the 10
Is
rule.
that the 10?
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
10
Yeah.
o'clock,
That is
you
not
stop the
CSBA
meeting,
language, I don't
you
think.
You take a vote, yeah, you take a vote whether you want, yeah.
Yeah, what time? is it?
I may have neglected to
I like
go
to
through with
move
that
it
at
to,
some point
let's
in the
move it to
spring.
9 o'clock.
So the president, I think, I'm sorry. you were-
No,
Yeah,
that's
president should
that's
be-
something we've had in place. It actually is in CSBA. I noticed in the sample, I
is?
think
Yeah.
in CSBA is at 10:30. So that they may have
Okay.
adopted the TED.
Yeah.
You
But
may
we're
so you may have started a trend.
at 10 o'clock,
Yeah.
we stop and then take a vote of whether we're gonna continue or table the meeting.
Okay.
And
And my first meeting was like, I was here till 1 in the morning.
Yeah,
It was
it-
insane.
we have
Yeah, I know.
meetings regularly.
And sometimes unnecessary. It's like,
Yes.
And then
Jones on.
what's not finished just carries to the next agenda. Is that how it works?
It would have to be determined and it would depend on a lot of things. With our action items that were time sensitive, and so might there be a consideration to,
hopefully those are
Jigger-
not at 10 o'clock.
right, well, but action does.
That's-
Yeah,
I know.
there could be a consideration to rejigger the, agenda at that time. But I think more than anything, if I can say in practice, it's really a goal, and I don't think anybody's checking to see if it ends at 10:05, right? But that we're kind of maintaining and being respectful of,
Yeah.
Everybody's schedule and working.
Well, I think,
minutes.
yeah. The staff here.
Yeah.
They don't want to
It's a
stick
long day.
around
We
and
appreciate
get
it.
up in the morning, you have to come back here again. And in here, it doesn't really have a start time of the meeting.
That's true, yeah.
So we start our actual meeting at 6:30.
Yeah.
What what about going to 6 o'clock? I know some people at work, I'm throwing it out there.
Then you
I think
need to
that's a
be-
different item.
Yeah.
I think
But
it's
no,
worthy of
it's supposed to
consideration.
be in here, because we had the end of the meeting and I thought somewhere, and it just dawned on me, but there was something, I thought we had the start of the meeting at a certain time.
I don't think
And
it's.
if
in
it's
this
not
one.
the same, policy, then I'll find it somewhere, but, okay.
It's not this policy, but we can figure out which policy it is and see
Yeah.
if we need to look at it.
Or even if it's just a discussion item first, just to see if we think, that we're meeting the needs of the community and everything at the time that we're starting. So, but that was, an unchanged part of this policy, the real change here is to give a little
Okay.
bit more meat on, handling any, potential disruptions.
Any other questions?
Yeah, on page 102, I think it is, on where you address the board. Do we put in here that you address the president anywhere, or does that happen at the time of?
So let's see where you're at. You're on
Page
so it's the second.
102, and I don't know, it could be item 1 or 2, I suppose. Where you would put that, but item 1 says public opportunity to address the board on any item. And that's a general statement, but there's nothing in here about, and maybe it doesn't have to be in here, about the actual mechanics of who you're talking to.
I think it's under, on the next page under number 5. A person wishing to be heard by the board is first recognized by the president and then and then
Okay, that's good
Yeah.
enough. You're in there.
The president's in there, and then it's nice because we have our little blurb
Right.
that pulls the language from a few different policies and then says, please address the board president.
All right, and then under section 3, it's on page 103.
Mhm.
There's a second paragraph that says, furthermore, blah, 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 blah. And it says that, ask staff to report back to the board at a subsequent meeting concerning any matter or take action directing staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. And it says that it's, and the board member can do this, and I don't think that's what our board handbook says. I think it says that at agenda time, you can ask for an agenda item.
Mhm.
But this one here is pretty broad-based, and if this is ed code,
This is Brown Act, I think.
yeah, so
Government
then I
code
suppose
section.
our manuals should have the same lingo in there.
Kind of see that the manual better defines them, right? Like this is,
Yeah.
right, so this is what's allowed kind of. Globally, and our handbook says, well, here's the way we implement this here in our
Yeah.
district, so.
But
I
it's,
kind of think the flow is right.
yeah, and I've asked for things that in that part of the meeting that weren't necessarily agenda items, but
Mhm.
are just like, hey, how about?
Mhm.
And so if that's okay, then I think we're fine there. Along with our manual. And then the other one was on item 5, and that is when you get to talk, and there's the 20-minute thing and stuff like that. So I've got a question. Does reading emails, text, or letters count as at 20 minutes?
We have used it that way, and in the few instances where there has been both,
Right.
a lengthy number of both, we defer to in person first.
Right.
And then we encourage, if you're gonna email something, make sure it can be read within 3 minutes.
But if it's the 20 minutes is up and there's emails, then get unread.
I think part of it, it's like, these are the general guidelines and as you know, right, sometimes you just have to demonstrate some flexibility depending on what the timing is like and how many people are there. But I like the suggestion here around, you can ask members of the public with the same viewpoint to select a few individuals to address the board. So I think we've had that a couple of times with emails where we can say, gosh, we did not have time to read every email aloud. I'll note that there are 3 or 4 of them. With this viewpoint, the board will certainly read them all, but we don't have the time to read them out loud. Yeah.
But I'd like your answer that in person is priority, because you could spend 20 minutes reading emails and everybody here would get no shot.
Well, another trend I've noticed is I think we've had several instances where we receive emails and the person also comes in
Right.
person to read their statement, right?
Right.
So to me, I was like,
so,
well, let's
yeah,
make sure we
right.
capture the people who came in person.
Okay, and I think that was all I have on this.
Yeah.
Oh, except for one last thing. So the board can have a person removed from the meeting. It was said a person. So does that include a board member or staff person?
There's other protocols for that.
And I don't need an answer now, but this was vague, and so to me, it's anybody.
I think if but if someone were disruptive to that level,
No matter who you are.
yeah, yeah. If we are talking
Okay.
about safety, then
Yeah.
right, we're always gonna have to.
Amanda will hop over the table and drag you out.
There's some.
I mean, do you see what I-
There's some boards that have, are not as well mannered.
That's right.
That is
Never
for
us,
sure.
never us.
I do like the flexibility too, that in exceptional circumstances, we can, to ensure that there's full opportunity for people to give input, we can kind of adjust that. Because we want to hear from people,
Mhm. And finding, right, like equity of voice and making
Yeah.
sure, if, 20 minutes of conversation on a topic, that there are people who have another perspective, all right, like, let's
Yeah.
make sure we
Yeah.
capture it.
and that translators get twice the time. I think that's that's great. Yeah.
All right.
So one thing that drives me nuts, and I didn't think of that till now, is under quorum abstentions, and And there it says the board has the responsibility to vote
Sorry,
on
which,
an item.
which page?
It's 1 of 5.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, oh, there you go.
And it's, you know, it's our responsibility. I mean, there's got to be a definition of when one abstains or recuses or excuses and all the different ones, not just I'm going to abstain because I don't have enough information. I mean, that just doesn't fly with me, and it would be nice in the future, not right now, but just to have a definition. I think at the CSBA, I asked those questions and people's kind of, you know, what the actual definition is too.
I think that's a great one to note and get in the handbook if it's not there
Yeah.
already.
We talked about that at one of our governance workshops.
So we had Sandy would recuse herself
Right.
because she lived right across the street.
Mhm.
And we had a matter that had to deal with just this area.
Mhm.
But that is a conflict. And so if you have a
Right.
conflict of
Well, then
interest,
there's a reason.
well, that's the reason. But
Yeah.
if your reason is I don't know enough, that's not a conflict.
No, it's not. It's, you know, and no,
So when
that shouldn't fly.
I want to make sure we all have our questions answered, but I'm also being mindful of the 10 o'clock rule and the fact that we haven't gotten to our action items yet. Anything else from the table or from Robert?
Well, yeah, that's right.
Ready to keep this moving
Once I'm
along,
trying hard not to forget.
ready to keep this going.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had any questions. You good?
Nope. Yeah,
right.
no.
I'll get the 259
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
there
no,
and bring it
yeah.
back to consent.
Yeah, we
Okay.
forgot the kid at Disney.
Questions from the audience? Any questions? You're good. Thanks for bearing with us. Any email questions?
Nothing on email.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our action item. Fiscal audit.
Yay! Good evening again, board. I would like to say that I'd like to apologize to the board in advance. In hindsight, I should have asked one of our auditors to come and present with 2 new board members to be a little bit more eloquent and articulate than I can be with our audit. So I'm going to do my best, and I promise next time I'm going to have someone from Siobhan and Associates come and present. It's just as common practice. A lot of us do it ourselves. A lot of districts have their auditors come. It's kind of, you know, goes both ways, but I do apologize for that with our 2 new board members. I know a little bit redundant. I'm just going to read the first paragraph of the background on the memo, just so we can kind of state for the purpose of why we perform this audit. The generally accepted accounting practices, GAAP, and the state of California require an audit of school districts' financial reports. The annual audit must be performed by an independent certified public accountant, a CPA, in accordance with generally accepted audit standards, yes, as well as the state and federal guidelines. The 21-22 audit was performed by the CPA firm of Siobhan and Associates LLP. The financial statements with the auditor's report are filed with the state controller's office, the Department of Education, and the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. So every year, in compliance with our financial statements, we are independently audited. They audit everything that you would think of. They audit not only our financial books, you know, is our revenue and our expense properly reported? Are we following GAAP procedures? Are we following SACS procedures within our resources? They test resource codes that are state and federal specific to programs. The audit guide coming up has some pretty specific, not this current year, but next year we'll have a lot more very specific audit guides in regards to the ELOT program. This is our our little slide in here and figure out what we're doing here. And then next year, the auditors will dive into that. The educator effectiveness grant, our ESSER money, these are all things that our auditors will look at next year more heavily because they'll be in the audit guide and they'll have guidelines. So I do work closely with our auditors. When we have questions about what's going on, what proper accounting we should use, if it's going to be in the audit guide, and what kind of audit procedures. Is it an audit procedure, or is it at the discretion of the district to decide if that's a common or proper practice? So that's how we kind of use our auditors. The second part of what they audit, which is, in my opinion, the most heavily part of it, is our attendance, because that is how we generate all of our funding. So every year the auditors come in the spring and they do a pre-audit of the middle school, because we only have one, and one of our elementary sites. And they go out and they go through all the months, all the backup, all the time. They audit everything that we have in regards to our attendance to make sure we're in full compliance with independent study requirements, absences, SARBs, anything along that line to make sure we're properly reporting all of our attendance for the year. And so this report, which is a lengthy 95-page report that has a lot of information in it, kind of just basically is what I summed up. They look at this. They also look at one of our board members is usually chosen. I believe it might have been the board president for the fraud questionnaire.
Gosh, that feels like a long time ago.
I know it does. Ironically, I was randomly chosen this year, and I thought, well, yeah, okay, that's weird, but you know, it's a random process. We're not a large district, so separation of duties is a really heavy part of what they audit us for, because you know, we have one AP person, we have one payroll person. At a point, I was approving everything in the entire district because just the flow of it had to go that way. So I've been working with them through through our last year to make sure everything I was doing was going to be in compliance with our audit, because we kind of had to pivot on the personnel that we had. So they look at not only all of our construction projects, they take that into account. They do what is called WIP. We produce work in progress estimates for them, because even though we're a nonprofit, we still do have to report capital expenditures. We still have to account for depreciation, everything that would kind of happen in a for-profit business. We have a variation of in ours. So for our two new board members, the most exciting part of the entire document is the last page. So not gonna lie. So page 208 of the docket, or page, I believe it's 95 of the audit report itself, which is blank, and it is exactly what we want. We have no audit findings whatsoever. So yay on everybody, all of our staff, yay. Everybody worked so hard. It became a common theme in my group of my group of counterparts, that if you didn't have an audit finding, like you were going to be the special one, basically. So we all just kind of knew it. There was too much that went on this last year, but the whole staff worked so hard on this. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit gushing, but they just worked really hard. Front office staff, amazing on all of the work they do on their end, all the way through all the staff at the district office. It's a hard thing when you have the auditors come 3 times a year. It's a little daunting. I'm used to it. My former district was large. Our auditors came 4 times a year, 4 weeks at a time. So they basically were always at our district office, like always. So they're great. I look at them as partners, but like, if you're not used to that, it can be a little bit like, oh God, the auditors are coming. But they really are our partners. They really do want to work to keep districts not to have a finding and not to end up having to pay money back for not being in compliance with something. So that was my short but long-winded explanation of our 21-22 audit that I am asking the board to approve this evening.
Yeah. Right. Questions or comments?
So I appreciate the audit. It's like the final exam for the term, and for multiple subjects and things like that. It's also, I find, an opportunity to tap into that brain power over at the auditor's office. And, you know, what do they hear? What do they know? That kind of thing. And so it's good to have a relationship. So you were talking about the ELOP. Is there going to be something for the TK program? Because that's a weird new thing.
That is part of the audit guide as well. Yes.
Okay.
And making sure, if we went ahead and went like full bore with the full age group, that we didn't take, ADA on those days, and we have mechanisms in place for that not to happen, and we're following all the guidelines. So that's part of the attendance, part of the audit.
Right. Okay. So we're going to have the credentialing side. So a teacher and a non-teacher in the classroom. So are they going to audit that too? Okay.
They do as part of the audit. They also audit through HR a lot of our credentialing and stuff like that. They pull those files from our human resources files and our payroll files to make sure not only are we properly our staff is properly credentialed in the jobs that they're working in, we're also paying them, the right amount of money in the right, and then they do heavy auditing on person stores.
So I commend you for no findings, and I will tell you my experience out there in the world is that you get one or two in your career, and that's it.
You strive for that.
Yeah. But there's always something.
Yeah.
And in fact, I will tell you, sometimes it's like, you just tell them, here's, I'm giving you one.
Yeah.
Look at that, write me up.
Other questions from the team? No? Any other questions from Zoom land? You good?
Yeah, not here. No, that's great news.
Awesome. It really is. So
Now, I see that the recommendation is for information only, but is this also for action?
Oh, this should be action. Do I have it as, I apologize. It is action, right? Okay.
No, but at the bottom of the page, it says, this is, the recommendation says for information only or something. What page is there?
Are you looking at the memo?
Oh,
The very first
yeah.
item, the agenda item,
Oh, okay.
at the bottom of the page.
it is not. It is.
I did that too.
I apologize, like,
Well,
yeah, no, I definitely need you to take action.
Yes.
Please.
well, in the title of the item.
Yeah.
It makes it pretty clear. It's an
Yeah,
action
it's-
item.
yeah.
so,
But then I see draft all over
The
this
item
thing.
that we're voting on, not the
So-
staff report.
got it. Yeah, that's
Well,
right. Good point, Ted.
And then one other quick thing is that we did have to file an extension. The audits are due December 15th to all the representative groups.
Right.
We, no, like, it just was a lot of stuff. I believe almost every district in the county had to file for an extension. And so we had our extension through January 31st, just to make sure.
Good.
I just wanted to give them, and make sure everything was done properly, nothing rushed through. So that's why normally this would have come to you January.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can just add one thing, I just want to say I appreciate how much the budget has kind of been on the forefront in different ways. So in some ways required, of course, we have to do an audit report, right? But that's public information for folks that really want to dig into budgetary things. But we have a fiscal prioritization team that's been meeting and being reported out on. That doesn't have to happen. We've had the community forum that was able to engage. We're going to have community workshop here. So I think this is just a really important piece of making sure any opportunity the public wants to engage about what makes up a school budget. I really appreciate that there's been kind of these almost like budget bites out there to go along with our LCAP bites. So thank you.
So will this be on our website?
Yes, as
Okay.
soon as the board approves it. That's why it's in draft form until the board, and when the board approves it. I do have to say the community forum, it was really cute. We had a parent there and I said, I kind of started off with, the district has an operating budget of roughly, $24 million. And she was. Her face was like millions. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Able
think
to pay.
I think that some people don't really realize, like it's the millions, tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And we're a small district.
We are,
Yeah.
All right. I think boards had their questions answered. Any questions from the audience? Picking on you.
Stick around for that one.
You-
Time for me to.
You're a super. Here's super.
Thank you for being with us.
Well,
It's good to see you. Yeah,
Thank you.
take care.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on email. Okay, with all that, do I have a motion to accept our auditors, our annual fiscal audit report?
I'll make the motion.
I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I saw a hand go up.
All right, was that an aye, Robert? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I blend in with everybody. Yes.
Got it. Any opposed? Not possible, right? Okay, we all said aye. I'm asking anyway. All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is the considering approval of our 22-23 comprehensive school safety plan, part 1.
So by ed code, every school district has to have their comprehensive school safety plan posted by March 1st. And so that's why we bring it this time of year. Earlier tonight, you considered part 2 of the comprehensive school safety plan in closed session, since that's the internal part of the plan. So thank you for considering and approving that. This is part 1, which is the public part of the plan. And similar to what we went through with part 2 part of the plan, I'll kind of go through it and identify which parts we really have a lot of input on, and then which parts are template. Like, for example, think it's important to note that by law, we have to include 10 different board policies, very specific board policies. We're not going to review 10 board policies tonight. That's part of the template. So I'll kind of identify, oh, this is part of the template. Oh, this is part of what we had input on. So with that, I will, and I'll try to refer to page number. You'll notice at the bottom, it's noted 1 of 16, 2 of 16, et cetera. Hopefully that will help. So I'll go past the cover page and the table of contents and go to page 3 of 16 of the plan. This is template. This is, you'll find if you went to any school district in California who's properly doing their comprehensive school safety plan, you would see this language. On page 4 of 16 is where some of our input begins. This is a good opportunity to remind the board, although I'm sure you remember that as a district under 2,500, we can submit one comprehensive school safety plan part 1. In districts over 2,500, each school has to submit this. We still submit a plan, a part 2 for each school because those are very unique to each school, but this will serve as the part 1 for the whole school district. And so as such, we get as much stakeholder involvement as we possibly can. And you will see from some of the folks who have had input and attended our meeting, you'll see law enforcement, you'll see parents, you'll see classified staff members, you'll see teachers, and you'll see administrators. So hopefully a good cross-section of the district to make sure that we're not doing this in a vacuum. I'll go on to page 5 of 16, which is really some of the data. So of course we have plans, but we want to monitor the plans and see how things are going. And so the 3 data points that we have historically used to monitor the safety plan are suspension rates, chronic absenteeism, which has also been mentioned earlier tonight, and then data from the California Healthy Kids Survey. So I'll touch on each of those. The first one being suspension rates, going back now, you can see, I think, what is that, 10 years or so. You can kind of see the ebb and flow of our suspension rates. The idea being lower is desirable, meaning that you're having a school that has other tools in their tool belt besides just kicking kids out of campus for trying to correct behavior and creating the kind of environment where students can learn and improve their behavior. And so we always include the county and the state in that to provide some context. And so you can see that a lot of the work that has been done, all credit to the school sites on this, is that we rarely use suspension as a tool. We use it as a last resort, and that's been our goal. And so our 19 and 20 and 2021 are weird years, to say it very unscientifically. I think everybody can agree to that. 21, 22 actually gave us a good window into how we're doing with that and being under 1%. And I always think it's important to say, I think it goes without saying, but I still think it's important to note that this doesn't mean we don't hold kids accountable. We do. We just try to correct their behavior with other tools besides just the hammer of suspension. So our suspension rate is looking really good in terms of improving against ourselves and within the context of the county and the state. You can see that in graph form too. On the next page, which is page 6 of 16, you can see the same thing with chronic absenteeism. Now, of course, we do not want 25.9% of our students to have chronic absenteeism. Anybody remember the definition of chronic absenteeism? We say it a lot.
10 days or something.
10%.
Yeah.
10%. So out of 180 school days, that's 18 absences during the year. As had been alluded to earlier, we don't want that number. But there were COVID protocols that, I will just say that they conflicted with trying to reduce chronic absenteeism and following the health protocols that we had to follow. Hence, I think it makes it even more important to have the context of the county and the state. If that county number was 10% and the state number was 10% and we were at 25, I think that would paint a whole different picture. Not using it as an excuse, not saying, well, everybody's doing it, but I think it is important to consider that within context. And so we're going to keep working on that. I will say that pre-COVID, we had a good beat on this. The schools were doing a really good job of identifying students early in the school year who may be on track for this and reaching out to parents and being proactive. And then, of course, during COVID, doing our best to implement the short-term independent study whenever possible. But it was hard. It was hard for parents and schools. And so hence that number going up. But I think still, if you did a mathematical equation from the years before, I think it would kind of still be in line with where we sat between the county and the state. The third data point, we don't have new data this year. As you see, this is a administration year. We do the odd years. And so California Healthy Kids Survey is administered every other year. So we'll be doing it quite soon this spring. And I'll have data to share with you later in the year so we can have as comparison points. And whenever possible, when we have county and state data, we also include that so we can have that context as well. And then the bottom part of page 7 of 16 kind of explains just what I just went over. So I'll move on to page 8 of 16. And this is template, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. You'll see that implemented most places until you get to the bottom where it starts to talk about the strategies. So I'll go through each of the strategies that we have listed. Everybody, I'll just kind of do a process check. We're on page 8 of 16, about the middle of the page where it says strategy 1. See a head nod there, just making sure that I'm not losing
Oh, Robert
anybody.
gave us a thumbs up.
Okay, thank you, Robert. So strategy 1 is to provide internet safety training and resources to student and staff. And we are working with law enforcement on this one. I will say it's been a challenge. Law enforcement has been impacted with their staff as well, but we are going to maintain the course. So that one has not happened in a couple of years, but we're determined to make it happen because it's so important, especially on the outlook of social media. That's not saying we're not doing anything internally. We do, our teachers do work with students on internet safety and safety protocols online. But we like to bring in law enforcement to add that little extra weight and to provide a perspective that we don't do. So we will continue diligently to bring
And
that.
hear what else is going on around the county.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And sometimes you're blown away with what's going on out there. I always think of the calculator app. It's the one that always resonates with me, and that it's not a calculator app. Sometimes it's nefarious. Strategy 2 is restorative practices. I kind of talked about this baked into, the suspension data. I think it's, the best thing, as administrators that we can be proud of is when we have an intentional practice and the data comes out. Sometimes the data comes out and you go, oh, we don't really know why it was good this year, but glad it was good. We know that suspension data has been driven down with really intentional work. And that has been the really hard work of learning restorative practices and alternatives to suspension. So, and social emotional learning plays a big part in all of that as well. So I think that's something that we can all be really proud of. Strategy 3, keeping current with code red drills and training from the sheriff's office. Deputy Curtis Harrison has been to 2 of our schools. They'll go to Main Street next, and then we're working with the city of Capitola to bring them into New Brighton. So Deputy Harrison is remarkable at being able to bring it down to a very understandable level, comprehensible level. So I'll make sure you get the date when he's at Main Street. So if you ever want to come out and watch him, I'd really recommend it. He connects well with staff and is able to answer their questions in a very down to earth way. So we're doing that. Strategy 4 is providing a training on SCOE threat assessment. We've done that at a very superficial level, admittedly this year so far, but we do review that threat assessment protocol, and we'll do a more in-depth training on it at a future administrative council. But we always try to keep that front and center. Strategy 5 is to provide annual incident command center training. And I will say that the county's incident command academy that Chris and I have been able to attend to has been very helpful. And we actually did a Keenan training on it at our last administrative council. So we can say that not only have we quote unquote checked the box on this, but we're continuing to delve deeper and making sure that we're improving our learning and being able to take that to our administrators. Strategy 6 is updating our anti-bullying plans, and we've been doing that for quite some time now. There wasn't a lot of material updates this year, it's just because a lot of the plans are in place, and you can see them hanging. I think I pointed up in the other one. And consider adding security cameras. So this is the hard part, the physical part. And so we have added cameras this year to Soquel Elementary. I know we've seen an immediate drop in vandalism, which is
The next day.
boom. So and the next phase of this will be we do want to tighten up the fencing, and I know this is something we've talked about a lot, and we probably don't want to take a deep dive into it, given the time tonight, but we've tried to take a moderate approach. We haven't gone out and just made perimeter fencing automatically, but we haven't turned a blind eye to it either. We've tried to take a strategic approach. Shell's been really good at working with fencing companies and going out with the principal and fencing companies and identifying vulnerable spots and shoring those up wherever we can. So we're going to continue down that path of trying to take a very mindful approach without, without, obviously our schools are open in some ways and there's a charm to that and a community element to that. So we want to be smart about that. We also want to be smart about security. So those are the strategies that we use, and really the rest of the plan is template. There will be descriptions of board policies, and then all the board policies, and then all our anti-bullying plans, and then a list of each school's emergency drills. So, we're to see if they have any questions.
Any questions? Robert's good. Thank you.
Actually, back to the fencing and security. I think I've asked this before, but do you think there will be grants coming up after everything that's going on in our whole society of securing our campuses, a security grant?
I can only say that makes logical sense. I haven't seen any myself yet.
Vote for
but-
me for governor.
Okay, there you go. Governor Donnelly has a mystery.
It was interesting when we met to talk about fencing with the architects to look at what was possible, does be design, and gotta have a first step somewhere to look at what needs to be done. The first question that they asked me was, what is your intent? To keep people in or to keep people out?
Right.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it wasn't, something when you think of that. Yeah. So it was an interesting question.
Yeah, and I know I've said this probably 100 times before, but whenever we've asked this, question, it's always been, that might be a nice part of it. Counselors, like having that mental health issue addressed first and foremost, that's the biggest bang for your buck. And so we don't ignore the physical plant part of it. And I think cameras have been a big addition, quality addition at New Brighton and at SoCal. So we're not ignoring that, but we prioritize the internal, part of it and trying to address student mental health.
Yeah, I guess that's just my thought, is I feel like we do a lot of positive things to connect students and kind of cultivate student leadership. I feel like that counteracts negative things on campus. That kind of creates school safety. I'd love to maybe see that as something positive as a strategy that we're doing.
We can add new strategies in future years for sure. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I think sometimes it fits in with the restorative practices strategy too. I mean, seeing kids do their own kind of conflict resolution work and
All that
the
SEL,
leadership, and modeling leadership for other students. So good point.
Yeah, the blueprint tool is a part of SEL and rulers, one example.
It's another example, the hardware software thing, right? So the hardware, the cameras, defenses, the dogs, everything. And then the software is our counselors and our staff. And so how do you spend? Right.
That's right. We've definitely decided as a district.
But I will tell you that the visibility of the hardware assures a lot of people. There were questions at our meeting about cameras, like when. But
doing everything gradual and moderate, but it's happening.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
No, just Phil makes a good point, preventative care, I guess, because I know one of the things that we deal with quite a bit is, vaping, both tobacco and marijuana on our campuses. I know, especially at New Brighton, it's really pervasive. I've heard from my kids and numerous friends and everything like that, and I know Craig had done something, like random backpack checks. There's different things that I think we really need to do to curtail that activity on campus. I know there's been some recent, there's been some drugs and some sales and some alcohol and some different things too. But, however we can, I see that as, a huge priority, for the board is really curtailing the vaping and the drug use on campus, especially marijuana, things like that. I
couldn't agree more. And I think, coming down to, the hard elements and the soft elements, I mean, relationship building, having counselors available, having positive rapport with law enforcement and not just seeing them as a negative reinforcer. All of those are happening and can and should happen more. And on the hard end, vape detectors have helped. It doesn't end vaping, but I think if you asked Craig before and Christina now, definitely a better way to get a handle on it. And it's kind of like the security even if you don't have the cameras, you put the sign in front, the statistic will show that at least gives those a second thought. I think it gives students a second thought. Who maybe would be inclined to choose not to. It doesn't eliminate it, but it helps. We added those, a couple years ago with the cameras?
3
3 years ago.
We want to just reduce opportunities.
Yeah.
Can I add to it too, just because I don't know if you had heard at the beginning when I was just doing my standing report, but we do have Christopher Koenig, who is a deputy with the Sheriff's Department, who's going to be doing a student kind of developmental kind of approach session with the students at New Brighton and doing a parent night about vaping also. And I think what's interesting about that, just anecdotally, is that one of the students who talked to their counselor recently about the issue of vaping said, but it's not as bad as cigarettes, right? And so that comment itself really helped us to understand that the student education component is so much larger than we believe that it is. Kids don't know what they're doing. They're doing something. But the more we can provide them information about what it's doing to their bodies is our job, right? And so I think we're to your point, Scott, like there's just so many places we're pushing in on it, soft and hard.
No, that's a great point. I mean, my kids even thought that, vaping doesn't cause cancer or vaping doesn't cause, the problems, it's vaping. It's not a cigarette, and yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Anything else? from us?
Transparent backpacks. like
Yeah,
the diner.
right. All these poor kids. Totally. Are we all good up here? Okay, we don't have anyone in person. We have, it's like a game of Survivor. We lost our in-person audience, but I'm counting on so we don't have any in-person comments or questions. I'm counting on there being an email though from the public.
No,
Not on this one. Okay, all right. Well, we tried. So with all of the discussion and conversation, do I have a motion to approve our 22-23 comprehensive school safety plan part 1?
I move.
All right, do I have a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Robert seconded.
Robert seconded.
Yeah, we thought I'd give him a chance.
All right, let's go.
Thanks, Ted.
Yeah,
Yeah, the voice.
yeah, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm rocking and rolling. I see that it's 9:53. Now I know I'm on the clock. Yeah, okay. Next up, consider the approval of CSBA Delegate Assembly Representative for Subregion 9A.
So I'm going to try to present this item with no bias. It may be hard, but we have had a board member serve as a delegate before. And so the Delegate Assembly for CSBA does a lot of work behind the scenes in all kinds of ways, advocacy, planning for the big conference every year and many other ways. And so it's a really important position. Our region, Subregion 9A, has 1 seat available. I'm sorry, for some reason I keep thinking 2. It has 1 seat available, as you will see. It has both candidates, one named Mark Decker, one named Phil Rodriguez, has both of their submissions for their application there. And tonight I'd ask the board to consider choosing one of those 2 candidates and making a nomination.
All right.
I'd
Yes.
like to nominate Mark Becker. And my reason for doing that is that I've been doing it for a while. Deb Pro did it along with me. We're both here down on the flatlands. Mark's up in San Lorenzo Valley, and I will tell you, at the state level, regional level, the school districts that have been impacted the most by the climate are those districts that are in the forest lands. And having another voice at the state level to talk about their problems is a good thing. And it would help our county because that's who's impacted the most, and as far as school children. So he's up there, and I like what he wrote, and so I think we should send him.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. And I mean, you were great on Delegate Assembly. I loved always getting your updates from your
Real
meetings.
time.
Yeah, we get real time updates, but it was great. So, but I can vouch for Mark as well. I know Mark through the Santa Cruz County School Boards Association. group. He served as he and I have been officers together there for several years. And so he's been a really reliable presence there, and is a really dedicated, involved board member. And I so agree with you on having the perspective of someone from the San Lorenzo Valley, having somebody from, Bonnie Doon or SLV, like really lends an important voice to the statewide conversation. So I'd be happy to second that. I think you made them
I moved.
nominations.
I
So
moved.
second the nomination and see if the team has any questions or comments. No?
Thanks for doing it, and that's great.
Yeah, I did it for a lot of years. So.
Yeah. All right. Will we have a motion in a second? We ready for a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of nominating Mark Becker for delegate assembly. We say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, great, thank you.
The terms humble and gracious come to mind.
That's absolutely perfect, yes. All right, last but definitely not least, last action item is to consider approval of the SEA Joint Initial Collective Bargaining Agreement proposal for negotiations. I'm gonna stop there.
That's a mouthful.
Not as good as Jessica.
So we've worked really hard as in every year, to have an ongoing positive relationship with the SEA. Feel like the monthly meetings have been a good example of that. And so all of that has positioned us and including the agreement that we, reached earlier in the year for this year to be in a perfect place to begin negotiating for next school year. This is where we want to be, where we're looking forward and not in the rearview mirror. With more and more of the governor's budget coming out and understanding where we may be, it gives us the ammunition to be able to have meaningful discussions. We reach out to SEA and always ask, in a non-full opening year, which three, besides compensation, it can be 3 articles and compensation that they'd like to open on, and then we can also choose 3. We agree on the same 3 this time, so really condenses it down. So that's hours of employment, class size, and employment and school safety. And of course, those are very broad areas. It's not just class size is going to be 25 or 26. That involves, lots of other components of class size. And so those, in addition to compensation, are the items that both parties wish to begin negotiations on. And so we can only do that if you approve it.
Okay, any questions from the team? All right. No questions from the in-person public. Any emails on this item?
I do. It has 15 parts.
Yeah.
I got so excited, and then I was gonna have to ask the board to extend the meeting. Coming up. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the SEA sunshine proposal? I like that.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you kindly. The last 2 items that we can get done in the next 2 minutes. Is there any correspondence that needs to be reported out? No correspondence. Thank you. All right. And then future agenda items. Does anyone want to request a future agenda right now? Otherwise, you can email or call. Okay. And with that being said, our last item really is the adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I have a second.
I'll second.
I think Ted got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned at 9:59 p.m.
Wow.
Talk about it.
Now,
All right.